Hello, friends and brothers. This is Dennis Yates with Masonic Improvement, and this is your Inner Circle Live. I'm glad you guys are with us tonight. Um, Hopefully, this is going to be a great show. I always feel like it is, but we've got a couple of different topics we want to talk about tonight. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the officer leadership training and some of the value adds that we got from it. So basically, um, what some of the best things that we got out of it, um, to promote this thing, because if this is the first time they've ever offered an online option, and we want to make sure they know that it was a great option and that we really enjoyed it and got a lot from it. After that, we're going to talk about a hot topic from this past week. It was a post from our dear brother, Zach Haston. He's a dear friend and an inner circle member of this show, and he always posts the best and most challenging data. I should say it's not always a chart or whatever. It's usually charts, but it's not always a chart. Sometimes it's just data, and it creates a lot of chatter online, and so we're going to tackle that one too, and that's on Texas endowments. I feel like I need that Scooby Doo kind of sound behind me when I say that. Speaking of that sound bar we were talking about earlier, if I had that sound bar, I'd. But anyways, all right. So without further ado, Larry, Jake, uh, Josh, and Lee, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really do appreciate you. So I love officer leadership training. That's how I got on the education committee, because I went so much. I went the first time and I was hooked, and I mean hooked. I always paid for it myself. I always traveled to other cities. I never went where it was easy. I really enjoyed traveling and hearing the answers of to the complex questions that were asked after the modules from different areas around Texas. And so I really dug in, and this was no different. It was a great weekend, and I wish more Masons had taken advantage of it. Larry, what's one of the biggest things that you took away from the OLT this weekend? And first, tell us, which one were you in? Were you in the 101 or the 201?
201, 201.
201.
Um, and I took it just to see how it's like, and also just to help it get the numbers, something new and make sure I supported it. But um, I really enjoyed it, and I'm really surprised how well it did. And we had, I wondered how much, what type of opportunities that we would have to be discussed as like a round table that we'd have at the big ones, the face-to-face meetings. But I found we in the I think the Friday night when we had little groups, so we had really good talks and be able to be uh, to make a comment without speaking is really good because there's some people might be not feel good about you know talking in front of other people, but they have a question, or maybe they got a question that they have a question to pertains to them, but maybe doesn't apply to everybody else. So they could ask that question, and they had somebody that was watching that, and I had a question, and got an answer real quick, and really enjoyed it. And I tell you what, I think it's a wave of the future uh, because it really gives a chance for people in the sticks, say the stick out in West Texas and other places that's way away. I don't know how they're going to talk about with the cost thing, I think they had. I need to have one suggestion though. I need to have something that they could like they have on defensive driving. You know, they come up there at a certain point. They put something that says, "Here, little cat goes across. What color is that cat?" You know. And if you're not
To
watching,
make sure you make
you
sure
know,
you're paying attention.
just
Yes.
you're watching if you're not asleep. You know, I did see some brothers that were taking a snooze. You know, and I would say there's a few times it was kind of, but I didn't go to sleep. But I really enjoyed it. So I'd like to hear what other people think.
Very nice. Very nice. What did you think?
Yeah, so I was in the 101 class. This is my third time going to officer leadership training in they've all been pretty recent. Um, I did both of my other ones in Houston, and I really enjoyed the accessibility of the online component, having it to where, we've got a lot of brothers that maybe can travel to lodge, or maybe they get a ride to lodge because they don't necessarily travel at night. They don't drive at night, or they don't travel far. And I think that they can still be active in their area, and this is going to give them the ability to kind of see that. I really enjoyed a lot of the topics that they covered there in the program, both in the togetherness and um, in the breakouts. I think we could have done a little bit more on the breakouts, but I 100% realized the difficulty with trying to plan and organize, orchestrate those breakouts um, when it's that many people. I think they had mentioned they actually hit their capacity Friday night when 101 and 201 were together. So that was just awesome to be able to see that many brothers wanting to get in and learn something to better themselves and better their local lodges.
Guess how they
I
found out
think,
about that? Because
oh yeah,
because
yeah, absolutely.
Dennis Lates showed up late, and I tried to log in, and I immediately texted Michael Garrett and said, "Hey man, I'm not able to get in." And he finally sent me a link to jump on in, but yeah, they had hit capacity. They didn't realize it, but yeah,
Yeah,
they found out because of Dennis Lates.
there you go. Yeah, it's definitely it was like I said, it was awesome to have that. And the highlight of it, as every and it almost seems like every time I've gone to OLT, they hit that crest at the end of the program. I remember the first one I went to, they had Right Worshipful Cody Cockcroft come in and give a presentation, um, and it was a little more esoteric in nature, but it also um, it drove home a lot of the points around lodge leadership and management, and then it also had some elements of esoteric concepts or some symbolism as well, and it worked really well. It jived really well, and it was a great capstone to the program. I think this one, having that program about Austin 101, the one that they do at Austin Lodge 12, the Freemasonry 101 program, for their prospective petitioners, was amazing. Being able to see how, and I don't know all the topics they talked about in the other class, but being able to see how they took that information that they presented about communication, how the internet and the web pages and the social media being the front door of today's society, and then bringing that and being able to take those leads and develop them into something that's real and live and in person, and then showing some of the topics that they cover on that, I think was awesome. um, as always, a lot of great ideas coming out of there. I wish that I would have had more brothers from my lodge there. We did set up there at my lodge. We had a handful of guys that came in and participated in the program. Um, but it's almost like Plato's allegory of the cave again. You know,
Yes.
you've seen something, you get a little bit of something that might be great, it might be good, and then when you go to bring it back to the lodge, invariably you're going to be hit with the, well, that's not how we do it here. That's not the
Yes.
way we've always
The
done it.
mob
And I just want to
mentality takes
urge,
over.
yep, I just want to urge anybody that did go, that might be watching this, disregard that. Continue to keep the good fight rolling. Make sure that you watched that information, you collected those good ideas, and just do what you can. Quick change happens slowly. Good change happens slowly, and then just implement these programs one thing at a time as well as you can.
Nice. Very nice. I'll just make a quick note real quick, and then I know that Josh has been to officer leadership training, and Lee, have you been to officer leadership training yet?
I did. I went to the one in Austin there at the Shrine back on, I want to say it was like March 13th.
Okay. Nice.
And that's
Nice.
where I met Kyle
Yes.
Rockwist and then also met Christopher there. And I thought Austin 12 gave a great pitch. And Jason was there talking about the history of the past master symbol. So he came in for that and did a talk on that. So yeah, I did.
Nice. Nice.
And I think too, that's the beauty of these different OLTs is no two are going to be the same, not just because they have different brothers at them and we share our ideas and communicate amongst our groups, but also because the team changes a little bit. You know, you've got your main members of the Committee on Education that are hosting and driving a lot of those main points home, but a lot of the little added things are from brothers that are from the region where those things are, and being able to do this one online. Because I'll tell you, I'm 4.5, 5 hours away from Austin, and I told the guys as they finished this presentation up at the end of the OLT program, I said, I would love to come sit and watch and see and participate in your Freemasonry 101 program to see what information I could have to bring back to my lodge. But doing that on a Monday after a 4.5 hour drive there, and that it's just not going to work for me, um, for the most part. So the accessibility of this online program is paramount.
Yep. I tell you.
Hey, Dennis,
Go ahead.
because they did it online, did they record it?
Yes. Yes, they
Did they
did.
record this so that the people that were, oh, so I think it's awesome. It's almost you establish a library, a digital library, so that the people that went to 101, 201, and the additional, they can go back to, like Jacob's talking about. It'd be great to be able to look at
For
that
reference,
Austin
yes.
12, what they do at their lodge for their 101.
Yes, that's one of the things that I've always loved about the training, and I actually emailed uh Brother Galloway earlier, Right Worshipful Galloway earlier, asking him if there was a link to a cloud or cloud drive or something like that, because we've always had that in the past. We used to get thumb drives with all the stuff from the 101 or 201 on it, so that we had that reference as we were planning out our time towards the east, right? And I think this, in the same way, being recorded gives that same opportunity for us to go back. I wouldn't doubt it if we ended up with links that were sent out to everybody that paid for the 101 or 201, because it's really invaluable information, and being able to see it more than once is very helpful, especially when you're thinking about a specific topic. Like we're planning this next week. We're not, but I'm just saying it, for instance, if we were planning, you know, next week we're all going to show up and do a planning session. Well, then being able to look at that 101, rewatch it, hash it out, and take notes and stuff before you get there, or even if you were able to share it with the lodge, depending on how they felt about that. Different abilities. um, and I didn't do this for this specific purpose. However, I think at this time I'll probably go ahead and let the cat out of the bag, that Masonic Improvement is working on a program similar to the officer leadership training. Well, it's basically the same, different formats, all that kind of stuff, different names, but it's going to be for other grand jurisdictions. And so I've got the team already established, and we are working on all the modules and stuff like that. But that's one of the things that is important, because we're going to be selling this basically to grand jurisdictions for their people. So having that data available as a grand jurisdiction for people to just come and pull from the cloud as they need it is invaluable, in my opinion, because you can learn it, you can go through it. I'm not very good at taking notes. If I'm not paying 100% attention to you, I'm going to lose it. So if I'm trying to write it down as you're talking about it, I'm not really retaining anything. I retain more just sitting there being in the moment with you. That's how my brain works. So, but having that reference after, that's an excellent point. I think that they should definitely consider it. And they probably have. That's why they recorded all the sessions. But they'll have to go
So
through it
they
first to make sure that there's nothing, you know, that could be, you know, could get somebody in trouble. We don't want to get anybody in trouble over this. But yeah, they'll have to go through it first before they release it. But I'm sure that's the reason why they're doing that. Go ahead, Lee.
Well, as we know, in what we do with Freemasonry, it's about coats of paint, right? And so much of what's discussed in 101, 201, and then the third piece of that, I think the more coats of paint that you can have, the better off it is, right? It's a perishable skill, especially with the stuff that we learned in the March timeframe, and having multiple people from your lodge going through each of those sessions with you. It kind of helps spread the lessons learned back into the lodge, because you're right. You're exactly right. Those that have been Masons for several years, they're like, hey, look, it's the way this has always been, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's why I love the fact that I saw, you know, a lot of brothers like Larry, past masters from way back, showing back up in support. But not only that, getting new ideas for the the lodge situations that we have today. I've got a brother in Corpus that, he's always talking about the glory days of this particular lodge. It's like, dude, we're past that. You got to start figuring out how we're going to, you know, make this happen in this lodge for these brothers. That you can't be thinking about what happened, 50 years ago, because we will never have those numbers again. You could fold every lodge into this one lodge, and you would not have the same membership that one lodge had 50 years ago. So that it's pointless to keep reminiscing on the golden days, because those are gone, and all of those ideas are not working today. Otherwise, we would still be just as big and just as relevant as we were before, in my opinion. So yeah, seeing some of the old mentor, I said old and I didn't mean to, seeing some of the mentor aged brethren with us, that for everybody to lean on in their lodges there. I mean, that was very encouraging to me.
I'm only 25 years old. I've just had a hard life.
Yeah. I always tell people, hit it like you live hard. But another thing to your point, Lee, and I'm glad you brought that up. And people, I have not talked to Lee about this. Um, I haven't talked to any of these guys about this. Really, the program that I'm creating, there is a 301 type element to it. The 101 and 201, because as it's been said before by smarter people than me, there's a management nature to the lodge, and there's a leadership nature to the lodge, and to the man that we need, right? We need men that can function well in both. But beyond that, more importantly, in my mind, and the brothers that I have that are part of the team, is the esoteric nature of the man. And so, on top of doing the 101 and 201, we're going to do focus on things like lodge culture, and building the lodge around the culture of um, the tenets of Freemasonry, and building it around the culture of esoteric. How do I put it? Esoteric knowledge, and building up of each other. So we're going to have to we're that third part is a brand new type of idea that we're going to have on this one, but it's all about lodge culture, and how to develop the type of lodge that's going to harness and promote not just education, but um, the brotherhood, the social aspect that goes along with that spiritual aspect, because ultimately that's what we're here for, right? Is helping each other to grow internally and externally. Glad to see all you folks on the chat here. Jackson Ransom and Les Montgomery, glad y'all are here. Um, Betamind, glad to see you. And yeah, if you're if you're if you're thinking that we're all about dark paths, I guess you're probably in the wrong chat room, because we're not interested in stuff like that. Ramey Lewis, wow, Moscow, Idaho, nice. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. I hope you enjoy the show. Um, a lot of y'all have come on after we started, and we've initially started talking about officer leadership training, because we just went through our very first online officer leadership training in the state of Texas. We've had it for years in person, and we still have it in person, but we had our first online one. Uh, we've had our first online platform this weekend, and it was a great success. I was really pleased with it. I thought it came off real well. And then it rolled into the fact that Masonic improvement, I have a team, and we're working on an officer leadership training for other grand jurisdictions that don't have the resources, or don't have um, or just have never done anything like this before. A lot of people talk about our officer leadership training from other grand jurisdictions, but they just don't know how to put it all together themselves or anything like that. So we're creating a product that we can offer to other grand jurisdictions. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. We're not talking about the Masonic improvement version. We're talking about the Texas version. And I really had a good time. I really had a good time. I really liked what they were saying about Austin 12. But what was interesting about that is that is the same type of program that Fort Worth 148 has had for many years. And if y'all, I don't know if he said where he was from or not, um, but one of the instructors is uh, is from 148, and he's actually been on this show before, a long time ago. And he was the reason I started my journey with podcasts, listening to podcasts. I started listening to Fort Worth 148 podcast, and then I met Justin, and was listening to Justin for a while on Masonic Improvement, and jumped on the show with Justin. And now Justin has retired, and it's just me. But oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Who am I thinking of? Tell me who I'm thinking of, guys.
Kyle?
What did you say?
Kyle?
No, Kyle's from Hillcrest, and they have another good
Ah,
program. And it's basically the same thing, to where, and we've talked about it on this show before, that we don't need to give away the lodge when somebody knocks on the door wanting to learn about who we are and what we are, we don't have to let them in the doors. There's no reason to show them what's inside our lodge room, not until they're initiated. What we do need to have is um, relevant websites and Facebook pages that guide people towards that door, right? Because ultimately they're already looking for information on Freemasonry. They're seeking it out themselves. And they come upon your website, and then you can start asking questions and start, filtering out that West Gate right then and there. And then, ultimately, if you find the right guy, then you say, hey, why don't you come to our 101 class? Or in Hillcrest's um, in their way of doing it, they invite them to their social night. They have one every month that's specific for making sure and inviting people that they meet online to that social event that's at some bar and grill or whatever around town. It's never at the lodge. And it's at some bar and grill around town, and they invite them to every one of those that they do for the next 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, however long it takes to decide if this guy is going to be the right kind of guy to let in their doors. And that's it. It's not a guaranteed time frame of, oh, we've made this guy wait 3 months. Oh, he's got the rest of his life to be a Mason if he really wants to be. So, let the guy, get to know the guy, make sure he's really what you really want in your lodge. And more importantly, is he right for the fraternity as a whole? Is he going to represent your lodge, your lodge, and the fraternity as a whole, uh, the way that you would want him to? So I think that they're both excellent plans. With 148 and Austin having their Austin 101 um, program, I think it's awesome, because then you can get people in and just kind of go through some of the stigmatisms and stuff like that people have questions about, and that'll weed out people too, because they have certain questions that they want answered. It's either going to be answered the way they want it or not, and they'll either stick around or for the next one, or they'll go home and not come back. And in that program, they don't necessarily take them to the lodge. I don't I don't know how many people know, but Austin 12 works out of, or lodges out of, the Scottish Rite building in Austin. And it's a pretty big building, and there's plenty of different little rooms that you can meet in, and have discussions and contemplations and stuff like that, and never ever see a lodge room. And I think that's awesome. I think that's the way it should be, in my opinion. I'm gonna take a drink and
Yeah,
let
they
somebody else
showed
talk.
some pictures. They showed some pictures of that 101, and it was in a conference room there, and they had 6 or 8 people gathered around a conference room, conference table, talking talking about the different things, and it goes on for a number of weeks, and they've got several different topics that they cycle through, and the discussion's got to be great. I mean, it's just
Yes.
based on the template and the outline that they showed us, without even any of the substance of what they talked about, just the outline of the topics. It's, I mean, it, you know, setting up and recommending to potential petitioners that they stop reading and stop researching is number one. I mean, that's, you know and then from that aspect, allowing them to start that conversation and allowing them to ask their questions, and that provides that open forum, for the candidates to really identify who they are, what they're doing, and why they're looking into that program. And if it's something that, that it's going to be a fit for, it's going to work. And I think, and I don't remember exactly when. I want to say it might have been during that time about their Austin's Freemasonry 101 program. They brought up something that kind of struck home to me, and we talked about it here, and I've discussed it with many other brothers. A potential candidate or a potential petitioner doesn't really know what Freemasonry is. You can research it as much as you can. You can research it to until you've read everything, but until you've experienced it, you don't really know. And it is our job during the vetting process to get to know this potential candidate, and we know what our lodge does with Freemasonry because every lodge is going to be a little bit different. Every lodge has its own culture, and it's our job to get to know that brother and see, or get to know that candidate to see if he's going to be a good fit with the brothers that we know at our lodge. If maybe the lodge down the street or in the next town over might be a better fit for what they're looking for. And we should not do the fraternity a disservice by turning this individual away because he's not going to be a fit at our lodge if maybe he's going to be great at another lodge down the street. And I think that
Or
just
letting
having
them
that
in,
open conversation.
just real quick, because I
Yeah,
because it's specific to what you just said, or letting them in the door at your lodge and then them walking away because you're not providing what they thought they were going to get. That's
absolutely.
that's the flip
Absolutely.
side to it. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, we know what our Freemasonry looks like at the local level. We need to get to know that candidate, and we need to help them gauge if they're going to be engaged in what our Freemasonry looks like at that lodge.
Well, and Jacob, I don't know if they told you all this, but when Austin 12 pitched to us during our 101, that they put them through their 101, and if a candidate or a petitioner doesn't come to all the catechism sessions, they're out.
Nice. Nice. See,
They're
So
that
very
the
that right there is just priceless.
they are very rigorous because the teachers that they have from that come in that teach each of the sessions from Austin 12 are committed to the craft. And if the petitioner or the applicant is not so committed, I think there's, if something comes up, but they can kind of, they can do the smell test. And if over a period of time it goes back to are they committed to the craft and to Freemasonry? And then the second piece, like you said, Jacob, is this a fit for the Austin 12 Lodge?
Right. That's the yes, that's I love it. I love it. I just want to
Yeah.
give a quick shout out because we got now I got to find them because of all the stuff that Beta Mine has been putting out there. The Sublime Brother from Washington State. Glad you made it. We've got two brothers from one from Ohio and one from Washington tonight, and that that makes me very happy seeing brothers. Um, I don't know if you guys have anything like this, like what we're talking about in your grand jurisdiction. What we're talking about is officer leadership training for the brothers. It's for Texas. We have a paid program for brothers to attend, and it's basically different management strategies for how to manage your lodge and become a good leader in the process. And so I'm curious if oh, Idaho. I'm sorry, brother Ramey Lewis. Um, but yeah, I'm curious as to if you guys have anything like that in your area. We're in the process. Masonic Improvement's in the process of creating something for jurisdictions that don't have anything like this. And I'm curious if y'all do. It's been very successful in Texas. Um, Mr. Betamine, you keep talking about Algeria. I'm just going to do some house cleaning real quick, brothers. You keep talking about Algeria, and there's nothing we can do for Algeria. Um, we're in the United States, and it's not our responsibility to fix other countries and other continents. You know, that's up to local local politicians, not us. So we're really not we're not interested in that kind of information on this podcast. But find you one that is interested in that kind of stuff, and go get your message out there. All right. So with that being said, um, hey Josh, are you still with us?
I'm here.
There you go. Uh, tell us some things that you've really grasped onto with officer leadership training that has really helped you in your journeys.
Well, that's I don't think we got enough time for all that, but
Well,
I'll give them a short.
give us one or two.
Well, a lot of it is um, it opens your eyes. You know, when you get there, first off, it's especially if you're doing like you're supposed to be doing and going in as your senior deacon year, and you start thinking about all the things you need to be thinking about going to the east. Um, so the planning aspect of going through the chairs and really sitting down and looking at what you want to accomplish at officer leadership, what you want to accomplish in the East was really the big eye opener that I got at a OLT to 101 especially, and then 201 just kind of continued to build on the calendar aspect and putting that out there and all those kind of different things. So I mean, it's really good information. If I know this weekend I had something else, another Masonic event we had to go to this weekend, so that's why I did not join the officer leadership training online. Otherwise, I would have.
Yeah,
But
I told them I
it
was going
really
to be absent. That's the only reason why they pardoned me.
yeah, okay. Um, so that was, like I said, it's really the get you thinking about the planning aspect of going through the chairs, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So that's why you always gotta, and that's really what I got a lot of out of OLT. There's a whole bunch of different things about looking at the finances, making a budget, working your calendar, utilizing who you got in the lodge and do what, setting up committees, things like that. But really the biggest thing I got out of OLT when I went through, and I went through all three of them, 201, 101, 201, and 301. But it was the getting your plan out there. And Dennis can attest to you, I'm a big planner. So that made a lot of sense to me. And the other thing that I got out of it was setting goals for yourself. And so when I went through 101 in 2022, I did not make it to the East until 2024. But in 2022, I already had a list of things I wanted to accomplish for my lodges that I was going to be worship master at. And thankfully, I've accomplished about 95% of what I wanted to get done. So that's just through, again, planning and doing things like that, and talking to um, your brothers there at the lodge. And that's the other thing is you can't wait until you sit in that chair to start talking with people about your ideas. You have to start talking to them ahead of time because you can't just show up and go, oh, I want to do this, and then they go, well, how are you going to do that? And they go, well, you don't have a plan. So, if you've got ideas that you want to do, whether it's fundraising, more family events, improvements in lodge building, that's one thing that OLT I got out of it is, start talking now about it. So that way, when you get to the East, you can go bam and hit the door running and everybody knows what's going on. So, but yeah, I think OLT is great. I like that they're try to online one. Like I said, I would have been on there this weekend had we not had that other event going on. But that also and I agree with Larry. The guys are out in the middle of nowhere. It's hard for them to drive from El Paso to Amarillo to go do OLT or wherever they're at in East Texas, or West Texas. But it should not be in lieu of the personal OLT, because the personal OLT, the camaraderie you get more. I mean, I'm sure this was great and everybody got to talk like Jacob said, and that was cool. But it's the sitting there at that table eating supper with somebody saying and talking about what's going on in their lodge versus what's going on in your lodge, and different ideas bouncing back and forth. And then, when everything's done, you're going back to the hotel room, and I know Dennis has said it time and time again, he sit down in the lobby and talks till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning with different people. So you don't want to take away from that aspect of it either, because that does add value to the one-on-one and two-on-one, that you can talk to those brothers from different areas. So
Agree. That social aspect and bouncing back and forth off of each other, that's priceless. That's priceless. And I really like what you said about, starting early and talking about what you want to do before you ever get to the east, and then that way people are prepared, and it's no surprise to anybody. You get less kickback because everybody knows what direction you're going. They've had time to chew on it, regurgitate it, whatever they have to do. If it's like a cow, you chew on it, swallow it, it comes up. You chew on it a little bit more, swallow it, it comes up, and eventually it goes down and stays down. And if you do it early enough, they have time to do that. So think of
right.
think of your brothers like cows in a herd, and that's what you're doing, is you're feeding them ahead of time so that they'll finally be able to keep it down by time you're there. I wanted to give a
You know,
quick shout out, and then go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, along those same lines, it's like even when you're talking with your committees, if you got your committee heads lined up, you need to make sure you have a clear path and goal for them. Like, this is what I want to accomplish this year. This is what we want to do. So that's not something you can drop on them at the August stated meeting going, oh, by the way, you're told. All my committee heads were asked back in March for Victoria, and there's
Yeah.
a clear path and goal of what we need to do for this year. So.
Well, and to let everybody in on a little secret that's listening or watching or whatever on this show, um, going along with what Josh was saying, when you're talking about your future plans with everybody, what you're doing is you're developing your purpose for the year, right? And you're helping them wrap their head around the purpose for the year. And then once you get to closer to your year, when you start assigning committees in theory, because you're not in the East yet, then you're letting people know, okay, this is the direction we're going. Everything that we do is going to align with this purpose. If we're not aligning with this purpose, then we're not focused on it. We're focused on what's aligning with this purpose. And that helps in getting things done the way that you had hoped to. And when you have those committee meetings, that's definitely what you do, is you reinforce that purpose so that they can take their talents and run with it. And real quick, Larry, before I jump to you, I wanted to give a shout out to Byron. I see him on the show. He's in the chat right now. He said he just got to Lake Charles and getting ready to start work in the morning. Awesome, Byron. And he was actually at the officer leadership training as well. And I know that he had a good time. I could tell that he was extremely engaged just by watching him on the screen. Um, Brother Lewis has said a lot of very good things in the chat. Brothers, y'all should all check out the chat and listen to some of our brothers from other areas as well. Um, some very wise stuff being said. An active lodge keeps the spirit high, and that's exactly right. So you find your purpose, you keep everybody busy with that purpose, and and they'll be happy that they came. There's nothing worse than showing up somewhere, sitting around and feeling like you're, just sitting there waiting for Father Time to come and get you. I hate that. I am not a sit around and do nothing kind of guy. I'm always doing something. So if I'm sitting there doing the sit and stare with you at lodge, I won't be doing the sit and stare with you at lodge next month. I can guarantee you. I'm going to be somewhere else. Larry, what you got?
Well, this kind of goes along with what Josh was saying. Um, let's see, it'd be good. The hotel that I stayed at, the first two was real close to in fact, right across the street from the venue, and I had no idea that other participants were staying there. I should have known, but checking out, I noticed people coming out and said, "Oh, you're here." So I'd really appreciate. I look forward next time that I go in person. It kind of put you out there and say where we going, where people are staying, and and maybe I'd really would like to have, after it was over, to sit down and have a beer or a drink or so forth, and just talk about with other brothers and a more intimate setting, what they got, what they had, what they got out of it, so their ideas, things like that. And as it was, when it's done, I got in there and go to my room, and that's about it. Go to bed. So, uh, I think I'll do that next time. It's this is what I've found out where other people are going to be going, where they're going
Yeah.
to staying at, and see. But anyway,
I
Which
always
one did you go to, Larry?
the first one I went to at Fort Worth 101, and right across from it was the Holiday Inn.
Yep.
And boy, I tell you, that was a I don't know, that must have been old. And it was nice inside. I have no complaints
It is
about
old.
the service, but I mean, parking was just it was just it was, and the place I was right across behind me was a big old huge pickup, and I'm a Mustang convertible, and I mean, I had to turn back this back. I could never got out of that parking lot. but but yeah, but I can tell that they've been, piecemeal. But let's see, the second time in 201 was in Austin, and that was at a Holiday Express, I think, like that. It was real nice, very very nice, and I think a lot of for the brothers that were leaders, putting what was the word,
Yeah,
speakers, so
the
forth. I
speakers,
think they
yeah,
probably stayed there.
The OLT
Yeah,
trainers, yes.
yeah,
That's
yeah, and yeah. So they probably want to sit around with me, but But
sure they
anyway,
do.
but yeah,
That's I used to
uh,
love that when I was on the committee, going down and having a scotch and talking to the brothers and seeing what they were getting out
yeah,
of the
yeah.
programs. Man, I enjoyed that like nothing else. That was more fun than teaching the stuff
Well, I'll tell you, I went to Houston both times, and they hosted it at
at the
the
shrine.
Shrine Center
Yeah.
there, Arabia Shrine. And both times I went, we were fortunate enough to where the Arabian alchemists hosted a
Yes.
little event after the first night, and good times were had by all. So maybe if you get one of the local organizations to kind of help participate in sponsoring something like that, I'm sure that they'd be able to do something like that, like what Larry was talking about, because we had that. It was great.
For sure. And I always do what Larry was talking about. I always go to the hotel where they say that where they say that there's spots. Where there's a block of rooms, that's where I want to go because I know they're gonna have other people there that are there for the same reason. What you got, Larry?
Yeah, and yeah, the 301, I did that down in San Antonio, and I didn't see any hotels close by, but I got was pretty close, only had about 10 miles away, but yeah, but that's a good idea, finding out the block of rooms where what they have. I didn't know they do that, so maybe explore that possibility next time. But thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do that at Grand Lodge too. Well, I say I do. There's a few different hotels that I generally stay at Grand Lodge, and the reason is because there's people I know that are staying at those hotels. Or if my girls are coming, then I always want to have an indoor pool for them to to swim in while I'm doing my Freemasonry. That way they can have their fun, I have my fun. But you know, there's at almost every hotel you're going to see a lot of Masons. The thing that I find helps me the most in conversation at any large event is me bringing my bottle of scotch down and setting it on the table with a glass and just sitting there and waiting for somebody to walk by. I I can't tell you how many times I always I, when I go to Grand Lodge, I am not joking. I usually buy 2 or 3 bottles of Glenlivet and then take it up there for to share with the brothers. But I can't tell you how many times that's worked getting people to stop by and just visit and talk about Freemasonry.
So where you set up at in the bar or just
I
in
usually set up right there in
the
the
lobby?
in the lobby, the dining area, wherever there's a
Oh,
table,
okay. Yeah,
wherever there's a table that a few guys can
I
gather
forgot it.
around.
That's a scotch that my son drinks. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's my favorite, and I also get it because I don't like drinking other scotches. I'm very particular, so I carry my own. I'm bad like that. I actually have a flask in my truck for that reason. If I go to a bar and it does not have what I drink, I'm going to my truck to pour what I drink. I'm bad like that. All right. So I think we've kind of come to a lull in the conversation of officer leadership training. Does anybody else have anything to add um, before we go to the next topic? All right. Well, here we go. All right. So I don't know if this applies to our brothers in Idaho and Washington State, but here in Texas we have what's called endowments, to where you can purchase so many units of an investment. Uh, it's basically it's it's a lot like, I guess the easiest way to put it is it's a lot like a oh, what are those called? I haven't.
Like a fixed annuity.
Yeah, I guess that's probably, yeah, that is what it is. But the but it we can buy more and more units, and dang it, I am losing my mind today. I have got so many things going through my mind. I apologize, guys. Um, a mutual fund. So it's a lot like a mutual fund, to where everybody buys in and everybody collects money off the big pie, right? And there's dividends at the end of each year that pay back towards the lodges and helps pay down some of the expenses of the lodges with those endowments. Now, with those endowments, if depending on what your lodge sets it at, the endowment, if you purchase an endowment at your lodge, at that specific lodge, then you no longer have to pay your annual dues at that lodge, um, per Grand Lodge law. If the lodge offers endowments and you purchase that endowment, then you no longer have to pay dues at that lodge. Now, the lodge is still responsible for its cut to Grand Lodge every year that would have come if you paid dues, called per capita. They're still responsible for that, but otherwise, it the only thing that they can count on is the income from that endowment. And there was an interesting post that Brother Zach Haston put up this past week. I got to try and get back to it now. That that had. I wish I could put it up on the screen for everybody. It shows the the endowment costs and what the percentage of dues payers there are for each endowment cost. So at different levels of endowment costs, there's a different percentage for each level of how many dues payers are still in that lodge. So at $500, and here's and I guess I'll wait before I say why this was even brought up. At $500, 48% of the lodge still remained as dues payers. At $600 to $1,000, now 500 is the minimum amount set by Grand Lodge that a lodge has to sell endowments for to be able to offer that that offer that lack of paying dues deal. So $500 is the minimum. Oh, somebody's putting it up for me. God bless you. Thank you. And then at $600 to $1,000, it's also 48% are annual dues payers. At $1,100 to $2,000, it's at 45% are still dues payers within the lodge. And at $2,100 plus for each endowment, it's 50%. There's not a lot of difference between 48%, 45%, and 50%, no matter what the cost is of the endowment. Now, we can make our assumptions, but I'd like to hear from you guys. You can go ahead and put that up on the screen. That was great. Go ahead and pick it up so people can see it online, because not everybody gets the picture.
Yeah, Dennis, I was trying to put a whiteboard up there, but I can't paste the picture that I sent to everybody into it, or at least I'm not smart enough to figure it out.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute, it says add content. All right, so let's press.
Yeah, I've never used that whiteboard before. But I can't jump over onto that because I'm on the streaming platform right now.
Right.
Otherwise, yeah, that's why I can't put it on.
Yeah, this is you can't copy and paste a so apologies for the distraction.
No worries. No worries at all. If one of you other guys can do it, then y'all feel free to share. So, what are your thoughts on that, Lee? I know that you were very interested in having this conversation, and I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I would tell you, I think that I was interested in the perspective that multiple people had that you went back and forth with on just, if I pay an endowment, I'm not sure why the lodge should still have to pay the per capita back to Grand Lodge. And so there was a bunch of that
Yeah,
discussion back and forth.
that just really bothered me really bad. And I'll get
Yeah.
to that later, but go ahead. Keep talking.
And so I think that the thing that I find in our lodge there at Fredericksburg is everybody that I've talked to that's done the endowment continues to pay. So
Yes.
I'd be very interested in the perspective, and I wish Zach was on because he's the one that pulled that together. And got brother Asher that's generating the chart now on the whiteboard, on the Zoom, on the chart, on our whiteboard
Yeah.
now.
Thank
So
you. I appreciate that. Y'all are awesome.
so um
Well,
I just think that it goes back to a lot of conversations about how various lodges are trying to figure out how do they meet their financial responsibility or cost to the Grand Lodge while still keeping their head afloat, while still meeting their requirement of what they're trying to do within their community and within their district is just kind of my thought. So I think, again, I think the perspectives are all good and have an open dialogue, which I thought it was very good and open dialogue, and it was all done very in a tasteful manner, right?
yep. Yep. I agree. Well, I'll jump in with one of the things that really gets under my skin is because there's a lot of people that complain about the fact that we have the the per capita cost. It's 2750 in the state of Texas per year for per capita that goes to Grand Lodge from every eligible member, and that means every master mason that is under a 50-year mason is responsible for dues unless a lodge has gifted him a life membership, which is just saying we're no longer going to pull dues from you. We're going to pay that per capita for you. Actually, you're still required to pay dues. I mean, pay per capita on those. So anybody that's not a 50-year Mason, there's still per capita on them. For anybody that's 50 and above, there is no per capita either. So it's really just that's more of a Grand Lodge gift. So that's why a 50 plus year award for all you worshipful masters out there. That's why that award those awards are really a Grand Lodge award and should be presented by a district deputy grand master, not by the lodge, because that's really a Grand Lodge award. And of course you get the benefits there from that. So I don't understand. I realize that Texas has a lot of money. There's we have investments that we don't necessarily have to um, get that per capita in order to function as a Grand Lodge and do all the same things that we're doing today. Um, we could run off of the investments, live off of the investments, and and not have any other care in the world. But here's my thing. Here's where I have a problem with that mentality. And Zach even has this mentality. He's part of that group that believes that, we have all this money, we don't have to, keep collecting from the members. But you know what? We're like the lodges are an extension of Grand Lodge. They're like a franchise of the mother company. So we are benefiting by being members of this grand jurisdiction. We get our tax benefits as a fraternity by being members of this Grand Lodge system. If we weren't a member of that Grand Lodge system, we would no longer get tax benefits. We would lose them in a heartbeat, because what happens is Grand Lodge collects all the data from all the different lodges, puts it all together, balls it up, gives it to the state and says, hey, we do this much in charitable contribution every year.
I
And
just want to pause you right there real quick, Dennis.
Okay.
Just to clarify everybody else out there in the internet ether, when Dennis says we, he's talking about the collective of lodges. We as individuals do not get any tax benefits.
Yeah, right. That's a good yes, that was a good statement to make. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, we as a collective of lodges, um, there are benefits that we receive because of that, and we get, and really the main one is a tax benefit to the property that we own, as far as our buildings, our independent lodge, individual lodge buildings all around the state. We because we're part of this big conglomerate of nonprofits under that umbrella, then we get the benefit of not having to pay property taxes on that. And if you think about that for a minute, you think about these lodges that are struggling, and at the end of the year, when they're doing their annual returns, don't have, uh, I don't want to use those terms. Those are the ones that my redneck uncle used to use. But they didn't have two pennies to rub together. That's what my aunt used to use. She was a lot smarter and wiser than him. They don't have two pennies to rub together. Just imagine if they had to pay those taxes. They'd be done. They'd be done. That's all it would take to put them under. In fact, I wrote it on there on one point during that conversation. I said, if we did that, then year one we'd lose 80% of our lodges because people wouldn't be able to keep up. And then within 5 years we'd lose another 5%, 10%, because that plenty of people have 10, 15, $20,000 in the bank, but how quick will that go away if we have to pay money against a building that's a commercial building that's that's rated at $600,000 or more? That's because really in today's real estate markets, that's what you're looking at in most buildings around the state. So let that sink in for one moment. You want to complain about, having that benefit. I think it's worth $2,750 to be able to save
Well,
that kind of money.
well, and Dennis, the other thing you just brought up and talk about the tax benefit, not to mention what Zach recently did around property insurance
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
the amount of savings that each of the lodges that participated in that policy renewal. So to me, it's all about, you got to pay to the greater good. You got to take I foresee more good than I don't. So it's just part of paying to the mothership.
That's exactly right. And we're in this mentality in Texas that we hate there's only two things: death and taxes, right? And we hate both of them. And we all feel like we should have free property taxes, free this, free that, because we're just downright rebels. Well, I'm sorry. I like my roads. I like the potholes being filled in. I like the water running clean. I like the different benefits I get from paying those taxes. So I'm okay doing that. If I'm able to make a living and pay my way through, then I'm gonna do it. I can I cannot eat a Whataburger, an extra Whataburger a week to 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 be able to pay taxes or to be able to pay higher dues in my lodge to cover those kind of expenses. Go ahead, Larry, and then I'll jump back on my soapbox.
Well, you think about the per diem as from two different ways. With the per diem, it's one way that the Grand Lodge kind of has some control over the uh, the the other lodges because they got the thumb on you, uh, so they have some authority, and it's called money, and money controls a lot of things in this world. Um, on the other hand, now that's just my that's me. That's but the other thing is, if you didn't have a per diem, if you didn't have some, you got to have some skin in the game. And I don't want to get into political, but a lot of things. If you have something that's free, sometimes it's if everything is free, then you just kind of there's no filter for the people that go in. Of course, you would still have the people that you let come in, the from the investigations and so forth. But I haven't really thought about that not having per diem. But I don't know. That's interesting. I'll think about that.
I don't even think it's enough to really
I
worry
think
about.
too, one of the,
Go ahead, Brother Asher.
you
Sorry.
know, one of my main takeaways looking at this chart, and I know we're having trouble showing it to everybody else, but it breaks down the percentage of members that are still paying annual dues. And when you look at it, it doesn't matter what the endowment cost is set at. It's still approximately half of the lodge members at each individual lodge that are paying annual dues. And as an individual who was a victim of the advertising around a $500 endowment, which is what my lodge was set at until very, very recently, being this past summer. um, I, I endowed after I was raised, and because I was told it was good for the lodge. I didn't realize, and it wasn't until I had really done some research on it, that I was costing my lodge $2.50 a year. This is the first year in recent history that a $500 endowment has broke even on 2750, because we got $5.50 per or 550 and change per endowment unit this year, as opposed to just a $5 per endowment unit. And it's just only because our investment committee and our finance committee at the Grand Lodge level has kept up with um, rising rates and been able to invest
Inflation.
our stuff well.
They started paying
And
attention. I'm glad.
yeah, and I really wish that I would have had this table that shows the percentage of annual dues payers as it relates to the endowment cost about, 2 or 3 months ago when we were having this conversation. Um, but that it was just, the big thing that was pitched and pushed was, oh, well, nobody's going to be able to afford it. Well, I'm looking at lodges with a $2,100 endowment cost is still 50% of the people at that lodge are endowed
Yep.
at 2,100. Now, that may not take into account that some of those individuals may have been endowed at 1,000, and now the endowment cost is raised to 2,100. Um, but
Well,
I was the
one of the
first
lodges,
person in my lodge to add additional endowment units.
I know for a
I
fact.
mean, when this new program came out, the new program that just came out, the Legacy Builder program. As soon as they announced that, I said, what a novel idea. I didn't even think to add additional endowment units. So I immediately went and I added additional endowment units. And um, my plan, our dues is, it was, again, we've recently raised that as well, but our dues was $100. And I talked to some of the brothers and I said, imagine if you were a dues paying member, could you still afford $100 a year for Freemasonry? And they were like, yes, we could. And I said, well, then let's get together and add $100 or one endowment unit to your endowment each year that you have the ability to do that. And I think another big thing that hurts a lot of people, or they don't think about it, our dues are due December 31st, which is right after a big holiday push. It's right after buying kids Christmas presents. It's right around the time that a lot of people are taking off work. I know my personal career, I work for a large industrial construction company, and a lot of our projects take off the week from Christmas to New Year's. And a lot of other people are taking off, before Christmas and after New Year's. And it's just, maybe they don't have the surplus of money to do it then. But if you're an endowed member, you could put $100 endowment, one endowment unit on top of your endowment in July. You can do it in May, and it's one of those things. You don't have to do it at the end of the year at due season. Do it whenever you have the ability, and increasing the endowment that you're paying for your lodge is only going to benefit the lodge if you are already an endowed member. If you're not an endowed member, I would recommend you continue to be a dues paying member.
Yeah. I I wanted to say that that $2,100 lodge, that I know of a few that are that much and higher. And um, I know that one of the $2,100 lodges has been a $2,100 lodge now for 5 or 10 years. And I mean, they were for quite a while, and they probably need to go ahead and raise theirs up now to match with inflation of what their expectations were back 10 years ago, right? Because that's what we fall into. And we do it at every lodge. We'll have this big increase, everybody gets all stirred up, and then we'll wait another 10, 15 years to have another big increase when we could just increase in increments and it doesn't hurt so bad. It doesn't hurt our mind and conscience so bad. But going back to what you were saying on, if you want to add to your endowment, it's, my father-in-law always taught me about rat hole money. And in Texas terms, that's called gun money. And that's that money that you hide away in your wallet that nobody knows about. And you take it out for whatever the hell you damn well please. And it's usually a pistol or a shotgun when you come across a good deal. But everybody's got that. Every man's got that rat hole money somewhere. So if you got that rat hole money and it's getting close to, a time when you're going to be prosperous in your season, right? Then go ahead and spend that rat hole money and invest in your lodge and invest in yourself, and then fill it back up later, or save up for it and do that. So now here's
Hey,
the.
Dennis,
Go ahead.
quick question. So, just to show my inexperience on the appended organs, is there endowment in Scottish Rite, York Rite, and Shrine?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
The in I think back when I got mine, and it's been quite some time ago now. I think it was $1,500 for the Scottish Rite. The Shrine was $3,000. Um, it, yeah, it's a little bit of a chunk for those appendant bodies, and I agree with it, especially for the appendant bodies because that's extra, right? Really, they should all be, you know, calculated well across the board. Byron told us earlier. Take care, Byron. It's good to see you. Um, Byron said earlier in the short term endowed members add one unit. That add 1 unit $100 increase to the annual return of the lodge, enough to cover the current per capita. So yeah, that's true. And I say that that's great that we're doing that. However, that doesn't pay for the water bill. That doesn't pay for the electricity. That doesn't pay for any of the dinners. It doesn't pay for any other part. It doesn't pay for the books. Now the aprons that I looked it up, the company that we've historically purchased aprons from at for our lodge is now $600 for a dozen, and they will only sell a dozen aprons at a time for the purpose of, you guys know what it's for when we present aprons. But you know that style, that kind of cheap design is, $50 a pop for an apron. And then the other thing that we give away at the end is $75 now. I mean, that's some real
Well,
money.
Dennis, y'all have been talking for over a year, back even when Justin was talking about raising the degree fees. And I agree with you.
Yep.
I think the degree fees are too low, right?
Yes. We're revisiting them now. Well, we did that at OSO 2 years ago, and the degree fees, if I remember, are 250, and 500 for the masters. But with that, you end up getting a really nice dinner at each degree and all that kind of stuff. And we're looking at it now at 189, and we're going through the same thing. We're looking at all the new costs. That's how I know about the costs of these items. Number one, I got to get some. Um, but we're looking at the costs of everything because we're re-looking at our degree fees to make sure that we're keeping up with the value that these guys are really getting. And so, yeah, they're going to end up going up. But in that cost as well will be, a cushion for a really nice dinner each time. That's important, I think, um, to make it a really nice experience. But not only with dues, but with degree fees, we need to consider what it really costs to do our and that's just another good pitch for officer leadership training, because that's one of the programs is it teaches you how to look up and create a budget, how to look up all the items that you need to look up in order to create a good budget for your lodge and determine where if your dues are in the right place or not. Somebody said, how do you have that discussion with your lodge on changing dues without getting thrown out of the room? And they said, you don't have the discussion of changing dues. All you do is you have a discussion on the data of what it costs to run your lodge. And then after it's all said and done, you say, and this is where we get our money from, right here and right here. We have endowments that create so much money, and we have dues that create the rest. How are we going to make up the difference? Do you want to do a bunch of fish fries and compete with your local Long John Silver's? Or do you want to and turn into a fast food restaurant? Or do you want to increase dues and act like a fraternity?
And that goes back full circle to what we opened up with tonight, because that's one of the big things they talk about in the 101 class at officer leadership training. And they go over the state of the lodge, and they show a presentation that one of the instructors gave to their lodge, and they go into a story about how they were also involved in another lodge, and they got brought in to help assist that lodge understand the true state of the lodge. And um, that lodge wound up catching that information and opting to merge. Um, and that was, the benefit of sharing that information. And for those of us that attended the officer leadership training and were registered, they sent out a link. It's got a bunch of stuff in the folder. Um, and one of them is the state of the lodge worksheet. And it's exactly what you were just talking about, is how much does it cost? What are our expenditures? How do we line that out? And then where's our money coming from? Where's our revenue? Do we have rental revenue that is a for sure thing? Do we have, what is the sure thing that we have coming in? One thing that I want to add though is, and the rest of you guys would be a lot more experienced than me, both for years in Texas Freemasonry, but also attending Grand Lodge more regularly. I know what it takes to create a resolution, but why has no one with this like mine? Because there's a ton of brothers that I've talked to at Grand Lodge at different functions that all believe that $500 is obviously too low. Why has Article 318 not been amended to set that minimum to 1,000 or 750?
Because there are too many brothers, especially the ones that go to Grand Lodge, that take off that aren't working anymore, that have the time to go to Grand Lodge, that vote to keep that down, because it is a Grand West
Jacob,
vote.
it'll spook the herd.
That's exactly right.
Now there's a separate provision which it could stay at 500 for Masons that have 50 plus years of service, or individuals that the lodge has granted life membership to. But if we set that minimum, never mind. I'm gonna leave it right there. I got 2 more years before I'm a member of Grand Lodge. How about that? We'll start there.
That's
I'll see
exactly
y'all on the
right.
stage in a couple years.
That's right. That's right.
Well, but I think, Jacob, my whole question is, and it goes back to Zach, is I don't understand why resolutions and Vanguard submission is in August, which is 2 months after the new chain of command for Lodge comes into place.
So they have time to process everything to get it ready for Grand Lodge.
So
I
so I
know,
will
but
say that
I mean, if you're the senior warden in May, and then in June you're the worshipful master, you got 60 days to generate your
no,
Vanguard application.
no, no, no,
Oh
no, no,
no.
no,
It's for the following
no.
year.
Nope.
Vanguard season is June to June. The
Yes.
Masonic year is our Vanguard season.
Okay.
It
Okay.
it restarts on June 24th.
So
But they
resolutions is
allow,
August.
hang on. They allow 60 days. You get 2 months after the end of the Vanguard season to finalize your application, get it approved by your district deputy, and then get it over to the education committee.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's the butter on top of the bread. But and here's the other cool thing with that, because they give us that 60 days. Let's say my lodge is going for Vanguard right now. We did everything last year except set a budget. Well, that budget has to be done within the first 2 months after installation. So they allow you that 60 days. So where I can use the budget that we're going to set this Tuesday for last year's Vanguard application and this year's Vanguard application.
Did they talk about that in 101 or 201, the Vanguard application process? Because I don't remember them talking about, I know they talked about
Yeah,
building a schedule, building a budget, sustainability of a lodge. Chris Galloway was heavy into his book, Leading from the East, and
Yep.
kind of using that as the doctrinal template for our 101.
So I didn't hear a ton about Vanguard in my 101 this year. But when I went to 201 in Houston last fall, it was in there.
It was in
It was
201.
201, yeah.
And just so
Quite
that
a bit.
people
Quite a
just
bit.
just so that people understand that are online listening, the Vanguard Award is basically a list of best practices for lodges, and if you can meet or exceed the expectations of this list, with a lot of different variables and options, then you receive what's called a Vanguard Award from Grand Lodge as recognition of a lodge that's really working hard to produce well-rounded lot, a well-rounded lodge and a well-rounded experience for the brothers. That being said, we did an episode. Um, Daniel Dutton, one of our inner circle members, Daniel Dutton and I did an episode just last month on the Vanguard. And if you're out of state and you would like to learn a little bit about that, it's a really good episode, and it can help you to think about things that you might want to do in your own lodge to step up your game. And like they said in the 201 class, when they presented the Vanguard, they said, look, man, this is intimidating if you look at it, if you look at all the options. But the reality is that most lodges are already doing 80% of this stuff. And if you just kick in that extra 20%, you get that award. And if you're not doing 80% already and it's not that easy, then just start with the first module. Knock out some of that stuff. Next year, keep doing that first module and then add the second module. Third year, do the same thing. And finally, you get enough under your belt to where it's like, you know what? We can do this. And it'll help your lodge gain confidence. It'll get people active in your lodge doing things. But the most important thing with a project like that is knowing your lodge, knowing your membership, and knowing their skill sets and their strengths. Because things like that, you want to assign certain tasks to certain people with certain strengths, and cater to that so that they're excited about what they're doing for the lodge.
And a lodge that's a 90-10 or a 95-5 lodge ain't going to make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This goes back to one of your other Facebook posts talking about 80-20, and somebody said, yeah, my lodge is more like 90-10, 95-5.
Yes. Yes.
So it will definitely cause people to understand that being a Freemason in a lodge is more of a participation sport and not a spectator sport.
Yes. And if you want to do Freemasonry and you're down to that 95.5, then you really need to figure out what it's going to take to get your people to come back. why they have figure out why they left and come back. Which, by the way, I like the questionnaire that you offered up, uh, Jake. That was pretty awesome. I like it, and I saved it. I started filling it out for
Yeah.
myself just to look to see what my own thoughts were.
I really wanted to put on the one before I sent it to OLT. I wanted to hard code, um, a shared email inbox or something to take the results off of it. That way, I still get all the data from anybody else in the state that uses it.
Nice, nice.
But
Well, I
I
tell you
couldn't
what.
figure out how to make that work. But that's we rolled it out at a past masters dinner. We used it there. I got a lot of great information. I got I don't even remember the count now, but I got a ton of great information. And then that was about 2 or 3 weeks before we got a Grand Master's official visit, and I rolled it out there. And all the Grand Lodge officers that were in attendance filled one out, and I got a lot of great responses. I think I mentioned one of them outside of a live as we discussed, like right after it happened, but it was that's something that we want to not talk. The specifics of the responses I'm not going to share, um, but the questions about what brought you to masonry, what you remember, those are the things that I want to know, because that's what's going to drive my calendar. It's the events that keep people engaged is what I want to see in my Freemason.
Yeah, I like that. Go ahead, Larry. What you got?
Yeah, Jacob, could you send that again to maybe to Masonic Improvement or
Yeah, yeah,
you
absolutely. I'll drop it in our inner circle
Inner Circle? Yeah.
Facebook group. Yep, we'll put it in the
Yeah.
inner circle Facebook group.
Okay.
So for any of the Freemasons that are curious to know what we're using to engage with our members, join the inner circle, and then you can have access to our Facebook group, and you can see what questionnaires we're using to pass out.
Well, thank you for the plug. Usually Daniel's here to do that because I don't advertise for myself on the show. I feel bad about it sometimes. But given a shameless plug, I will say that if you want to have these kind of discussions and start your week off thinking Freemasonry and what you can do to improve your lodge and yourself, then join the inner circle. And what that requires is going to YouTube and if you like it, subscribe. If you really like it, then join. And and then you can join us on these lives as well. And then we also have a book club that we do, and which I need to get that set up for send out an email for next month to remind everybody to read for the book club. I think because we're coming down to the end of it with the appendixes, I think we'll just kind of push through all the appendixes and get on to the next book next time. So Larry's got it. Oh, you want to do that one next? I can't hear you. You got your mute on.
Yeah, I saw that you were reading that, so I said I got that, and so I'm reading through that, and it's very interesting. And really observing it is when you step back and observe things, you kind of see things he's talking about that. So I like it.
Yes.
Plus,
Yes.
plus I'm halfway through, so yeah.
It's a great book, and it's not a hard read, and we could do it in a couple months, really, probably, maybe 3 months to go through it very thoroughly. But Brother Messer, glad you're able to make it tonight.
Yeah, and sorry, Jacob, I was not laughing at your comment. I didn't realize I was unmuted. Brother Kovar shared something with me that I found humorous, so you will forgive me. Um, yeah, I'm late because I'm going to confer the Mark Master degree in late September, and so I was having one-on-one intense study session with companion Bennett for a couple of hours.
Nice. And that can be tough talking with even visiting with Brother Bennett sometimes, because he really likes to talk Freemasonry. He's worse than I am, I think. I'm surprised you
We
got
spent a
any
lot of time
studying
talking
done.
about the working tools. We no, we did. We got a bunch done, but we also spent a lot of time talking about the working tools of a Mark Master Mason, which are great lessons. So,
Yes, they are.
um, yeah.
Yes, they are. Awesome. Well, that's definitely worth doing. So no apologies needed here. I was reading on this talking about the someone asked if we're familiar with the giant builder myth in Prozetta, or wondering, what the sun, moon, and Freya might mean. Um, I don't know that that's something we need to discuss tonight, being 9:45. Uh, but Freya being the goddess of the Norse goddess, um, I could definitely see similarities in her character traits that one might um, that one might associate uh, with Freemasonry. So I could see that, even though, uh, yeah, I could see that. But yeah, that would probably be something that we need to talk about on another time. That's the great question, though. I like that, because I love to look at similarities in character traits of the goddesses and gods, because ultimately, for me, I believe that almost all of them have these similarities that are just undeniable, and all the different gods and goddesses, the character traits are character traits of uh, of the ultimate God, or ultimate creator of creation. So, but that's a whole nother topic, and I think that would be a good one on one of these episodes that we do. We start talking about a little bit of esoteric stuff. So, one of the things that I think the biggest takeaway that Zach was wanting to try to get us to get to with that post, in talking about the endowments and the different levels, and showing that all lodges pretty much stayed about 50% of the membership would still pay dues no matter what the endowment cost was. And I think the point is that it's all how your lodge packages it. That And it also is in direct relation with your dues prices. If you have a lodge that's charging $300 in dues, then the endowment is set low at $500. Then you're not going to collect any more dues. You're going to be collecting endowments, right? People are going to be buying endowments left and right. So I think lodges will typically, depending on their dues structure, that's where they kind of structure their endowments, and that's why you see those kinds of ratios that are pretty much the same. I I I had messaged in that, and I was pleasantly surprised at the belief system of the Grand Lodge of New Mexico. I am also a New Mexico Mason, and one of my lodges, we just redid the bylaws, and I asked, so where's the part about the endowments? And they said, well, we just go by what Grand Lodge is uh, telling us to do. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Because I'm thinking something similar to Texas, right? Well, I go and I look at Grand Lodge law for New Mexico, which, by the way, our book in Texas is like this big, and in New Mexico it's like this big. But I'm looking at the endowment part of the laws, and it's 23 times the dues cost, no matter what lodge you're at. Whatever your dues cost is, the endowments are going to cost 23 times that amount. which is, as Zach had pointed out, which I had known because we had this conversation before, but 23 times is basically 23 years, which is the average lifespan of a Mason, right? Before he caps out and doesn't have to pay dues anymore, or he leaves the lodge. So 23 times you're going to get your money's worth for 23 years, basically, if you do it that way. But I was pleasantly surprised because, like Jacob had said earlier, with our Grand Lodge, if we ever tried to put something like that through, uh, I think for the first time we would get shoes and regalia and canes and everything in the world thrown at us up on the stage as we were presenting it, because it's that would be heresy in Texas to think like that. Go ahead, Jacob. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, and I think too that maybe the inverse of that table may be true as well, right? And it kind of clued me in as you started talking there. Maybe the lodges know themselves, know their individual local members well enough to where they keep their endowments set at a point to where approximately 50% are willing to endow.
I don't think enough
Because
people put
I
that
I
kind of
would
thought into it.
no,
That,
but I
but
think
that's
it's natural. I'm
it's
saying I think it's
probably,
natural.
yes, yeah.
And because I think that I'm from a very small town rural lodge. Our city's population is approximately a little bit less than 10,000 people, and we have 2 lodges in our city. Way too many, but regardless, that's a whole other sideshow. Um, but the the thing is, our lodge kept our endowment set at 500 because they knew that the local group, the local people, the representatives of our community, because every lodge is just a cross section of the members of the community, would be able to afford that. And I think like that's not the right thinking. Don't leave it set to where people can afford it easily. It needs to it needs to mean something.
I
Um
agree.
I I think that we're seeing that 50% range because it is left up to the individual lodges and they opt to keep it affordable for their members.
You know what's interesting, and with that in mind, are you leaving, Jeff?
No, no, no. I want to say something.
Oh, okay. I didn't see your hand raised. I saw your hand
Well,
waving.
I was trying to get there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Go right ahead. Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Um, there's not a lot of things in this world that I hate. Purple stickers, hot beer, and probably endowments. Um, I can't tell you how many times, and we've all done it. You sit in the same lodges and you have the same conversation, and there's the one guy that preaches about how important endowments are. When you're dead, you need to be endowed. When you're alive, you need to pay dues. And the dues of the lodge should be equivalent to what it costs to operate the lodge for a year at a minimum. And that's what's causing all of this. And I'm sorry I got in late, but I picked up on the 5 and 95 and the 20, the 2080 and the 50/50 and all of that, right? But when you collect dues in a lodge that has 65 members and those dues don't cover the monthly expenses, something's broken.
Yep.
And it shouldn't be, you know, I'm on a soapbox, but no offense to the currently endowed or the 50-year Masons that no longer pay dues. Most of the time when you're in lodge and you're trying to raise dues, it's the endowed and 50-year Masons that are throwing the biggest fit about it. Like, guys, you know, and you'll never, like, I'm not proposing that we write a resolution that 50-year Masons can't vote on dues. But at the same time,
I
like,
think we
guys,
should.
I mean, seriously though, we're painting ourselves into a corner here, you know. But man, we spend so much time talking about endowments, and then lodges are writing checks because the endowments, the returns, you know, they're so close, they're not doing what they were meant to do. And you know, my dad and granddad endowed in the 80s when you could, right?
Yep.
And I and if I could pull them out of the ground and say, Dad, those endowments aren't generate, like, y'all should have paid 10x what the dues were in the 80s, and that should be what we're paying now as a minimum. They probably would have said, yeah.
20 times the dues.
Yeah.
It's because if your endowment is set at 20 times what your dues is, the percentage of that we get back from Grand Lodge would be equivalent to what dues is.
Yes.
Right, but here's right. So we just finished the election installation cycle, and so the only time you can raise endowments is when? June. And
Yep.
so how many people that, you know, in 2026, or, you know, some guy in 3030 or 2030 is watching this because you don't have anything else to do. Did you have a discussion about raising endowments? We did it.
We raised ours.
We did it a couple of years ago to go from 500 to some number, and I made a motion to raise it to $1,000, and you would have thought I asked everybody to eat the paint off the walls. And then the motion was amended, and it passed at 750. Guess how many endowments we've sold in the last 2 years?
The same number. One. Just one.
Yeah.
If we'd have made it 1,000, how many would we have sold?
Probably the same one.
I mean, and no offense, I just the whole endowment discussion. I'll get off my box, but the whole endowment discussion is just mind numbing.
Yeah, it's really about the perception of value that people carry with their lodge, right? And if they find enough value in it, it doesn't matter what the cost is. They're gonna pay it. Not only that, but they're gonna stick around. So I was, and I come to that because I was reading it in one of the notes. It said if the rates were lower, less people would leave, and I don't know if that was being sarcastic or not, but I tend to disagree. I I have a lodge that has 150 members, and half of them are endowed. So 75 people are endowed in that lodge. I still only have 10 people on a good night showing up at the lodge because people have run off other people. The people there's people that are there or that have been there that ran off other people, or they weren't getting the value from the lodge, and so they left and they walked out, and they're not going to come back until we change that culture. And then when we change that culture, there's a mindset of value there, and people will be willing to pay whatever it takes to keep that value going. So I have no problem with, having higher dues. I can tell you that one of my lodges, the dues are $500 a year, and the endowments for that lodge are 11,500 for an endowment. So if tell me which one I'm going to do right off the bat. I'm not just going to buy that endowment right off the bat. I'm going to pay my dues a few years before I get that endowment. I'm going to have to save up for it. It's not something that's going to come easy, because that's not an amount you can just take out of the bank and, shuffle it around here and there to at will, right? I've still got to live. I've got a family, and I've got two businesses working. It's and I got to pay for all my Freemasonry. That's just one lodge. So I have all these appendant bodies and all this other stuff to pay for. It's not going to happen in 1 year, which I think is exactly the way all of our lodges should be set at. And I'll say another thing real quick before I jump on to Larry and then Jacob. I'm a member of, I think 6 different lodges right now. No, oh shit, that's 8 different lodges right now. All but 2 are endowed. And why is that? All but 2 are endowed, and I'm not visiting any of the endowed lodges. That's because the perceived value is no longer there. I had a reason to go to that lodge, and I thought, oh, this is a great lodge. I enjoy being here. And I bought that endowment thinking, this is a great lodge. I enjoy being there. And then I realized, oh, it's not what I was looking for. So I went to the next lodge, and I did the same thing. If those endowments weren't so damn cheap, I wouldn't have done that. I would have just paid dues and then just moved on to the next lodge. It's not the cost of it's not the low prices that keeps somebody at lodge. It's the perceived value. And I simply no longer felt the value in those lodges. So I spend my time with the ones where I find value. Just as a personal, for instance, I'm not trying to. I'm an endowment whore. I was sold on it. I took it. I liked it, and now I don't. Now I'm embarrassed. Oh, that's a good analogy. I'm an endowment whore. I was sold on it. I liked it a lot. And now I'm embarrassed as I do my walk of shame back home, right? That's so bad. Oh, some of y'all are smiling. Even you guys that aren't on here, I know you're smiling. Go ahead, Larry, what you got?
Well, yeah, if you think things that's too cheap, then I think people perceive that there's no value. So you got to, and I have to look it back when I was raised at Richardson 12, what was it, 14 in 1977. It was $125 if I'm not wrong. I mean, that's back then.
Yes.
I wonder what it would be. I see Lee's got his waving there. Where are you? He can say where he is later or Topo. But anyway, I wonder what it is now. But I'll tell you, back then it was. I saw the value of it when if it had been real, $50 or whatever, that's that's think they must not think too much of themselves if they think that's what they're worth, you know.
Yep.
So I agree. You gotta you price yourself too low. There
We've
has to
got
be some
we got some big
there's
leaders. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, that's okay. That had finished it. Yeah.
Well,
We got some
I
big
lost what
leaders
I was
that came out
originally
of.
gonna.
We got well,
Yeah.
real quick. We got some big leaders that came out of Richardson. That's a great lodge, and now I know why you're here because Richardson has made some very fine masons. Some of my
I'll
favorite
tell you,
humans come out of Richardson.
I love that lodge, and the only reason why I was in retail and I just could not keep up with. I mean, they were active, very active, and I just to be active and be able to feel that I was participating as I should as a member. I got up to senior deacon, and they have the little talk where you say, "Okay, about to go up in there, you're about to make a commitment. You just think you can because we're gonna ask a little bit more out of you now. Is this you think you can live up with it? Can you do it?" And I had to ask myself, and I said, "Nah, I don't think I could." And I'm glad I did because I don't think I would be good if I did it. But well, if I was back in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, man, I would be back with them in a heartbeat. Whatever it was, I'd find the money to do
Right.
it. I
Yep.
love that lodge.
Yep. Go ahead, Jacob. Sorry about that.
No. So I got my original point, and I'll go back to that. But you said you're a member of 8 lodges.
Yes, six in this grand jurisdiction,
Sure, sure.
two in another one.
Okay, well then let me adjust my math here real quick.
Oh shit.
Because I'm not going to count the 2 in the other grand jurisdiction, right?
Okay.
So 2750 times 6 lodges is $165
Yeah.
that Dennis is responsible for to Grand Lodge, right? Every year.
That's a bargain.
I'm a member of 1 lodge. I'm responsible for 2750. Do you get more from Grand Lodge for the $165 than I do for my 2750?
Mm,
Why does Grand Lodge
technically,
charge per
no.
capita for
Technically,
every
no.
membership? Right. Why does Grand Lodge charge per capita for every membership instead of every Mason?
Because, well, I can't tell you that. However, I think that it's fair because they're still supporting those lodges. They still, it doesn't matter if it was me as a plural member or somebody else as an independent member. I mean, they've still got all the access and all the resources available to that member. I don't know.
Sure, yeah, but you're gonna have that regardless,
Well,
right? Your
if
your
I'm looking
your
at it,
Grandview account and
if I'm
your
looking at it
the
as an
things,
individual, sure, but I'm not looking at it as an
yeah.
individual.
And I could see, because we talked earlier that there was a discussion had that maybe Grand Lodge doesn't need to charge per capita anymore, but we want to keep having extra services and we want to continue to see it grow. I think that would be a big first step into helping some of these struggling lodges, and not that we maybe need to continue to help them by joining them rather than combining some of them.
We definitely
But
need to combine them.
if I again, and I'm a member, speaking as a member of one individual lodge. I am a member of just one lodge, um, and I think sometime in the future I may join some of the other specialty lodges. I've been doing a lot of visiting over to Gunsight down in Galveston. I really enjoy those guys.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good group of guys.
it's a
Good
great
group of
group of
brothers.
folks. I have become an associate member at the Lodge of Research. That's a separate kind of thing, not necessarily a concordant body, but it's not a you know y-
That's an
I don't
awesome
see
lodge to be a
I don't
part of.
see the Lodge of Research doing any degree work. Um,
I'd rather see you at, well, the most expensive lodge I'm a member of is we haven't done any degree work. We look for specific people and or we allow specific people through the West Gate, and that's it. So we're not interested in doing degrees. We're interested in a certain type of man that's already prepped and ready.
and that was my next point. During Most Worshipful Rumsey's Grandmaster Conference speeches that he delivered this year, he talked about his personal experience with one of the lodges, and I don't remember which one, but it was around the Dallas Fort Worth area. And he talked about how they were trying to revitalize this lodge, and they set their degree fees and their dues at such an astronomical price that they thought that, or I think it might have been just the degree fees. They set their degree fees at such an astronomical price that they anticipated never doing a degree. That was their plan,
Yep.
but they still had petitioners knocking on the door because their lodge added value.
Yes.
And I think if we remember back, this was going to be pre Justin's retirement. there were discussions here on the Masonic Improvement Group about front loading the degree fees
Yes.
and elevating them to the point to where it's a possibility to where if you pay these higher degree fees, that we may set some of that aside and buy you an endowment, which may work.
Yes. And that,
Because if we set our endowment at $2,000 or $2,500, but you're paying $1,500 in degree fees, and I can put 800 of that aside and tell you, look, you're going to be paying dues here, but I've got $800 ready. I've got eight out of the 20 endowment units are paid for already. If you come up with the rest of it, you'll have an endowment.
yeah, yeah. And I agree with that. I like that approach, and I can get behind that 100%. And I agree with the front loading of the degree fees. I mean, that's why we had that conversation. I like what our brother said about the oh oh man, it went away. He went away. One of the brothers mentioned that, think about McDonald's, because I had mentioned that in on that Facebook post that brought up this conversation, is that there's franchise fee for everything. So and in my instance, I use the Big Mac as the example that for every Big Mac sold, a certain amount goes to McDonald's, because they're the ones who built this conglomerate of a network that allows you to have the recognition that you have. And so it's only right that we pay homage. And for me personally, I remain a member not because I have an endowment at all those lodges, but I remain a member of those lodges because each one does have something different that I appreciate. And if those brothers call on me, I still answer the call. It's not like I've completely abandoned those lodges. So I still get something out of it. So I'm willing to pay that franchise fee for each one of them. Alex Guerra, you made it. Alex went to the 101 class as well.
I
What did you
did.
think about OLT? What did you think about it?
Man, listen, I think it was great. This was my very first OLT, right? And there was a lot that I was able to take out of it. Um there was a lot that I learned, a lot of stuff that I was kind of um shocked by. So I had it kind of drilled in me to get into the law book when becoming a master um pretty early on, and even as an EA, really, like, hey, look at the law book, learn what you can and cannot do. um there are some gray areas, right, which is kind of where we like to live every once in a while. But um it was kind of shocking that some of the other brothers who were in the 101 did not have that guidance, and they didn't have um that leadership, and didn't really have that. And I can see that with visiting other lodges and saying, like, wait a minute, what do you mean you you don't go through the book? What do you mean you don't go through the monitor? What's going on? um and I think that goes, like, to the mentorship. It goes to that guidance that the older Masons, the more experienced Masons, I should say, that you don't have to be old, just more experienced,
Right.
um, to take the hand of that newer brother coming in and guide him, right. And I read, I can't remember if it was an esoterica, but it was something like the true labor of a master mason is to learn and to teach.
Yes.
That's the true labor of masonry, right? is to learn and to teach.
We are
And
always an apprentice to
that
someone.
very
We are
few
always a master to somebody else.
Absolutely, absolutely, 1000%. Um, eh, my I can't remember who it was that said, if you don't know it well enough to teach it, then you don't know it enough,
Yep.
pretty much. And so I kind of take that into consideration um when I'm going through and like talking about something that I think I know. And then as I'm explaining it, I take a step back and go, wait a minute, maybe I don't know that much about it. You know, let me put a post here. Let me put a stop on it. I'll get back to you, kind of thing. But the 101, the vault, as it was called, right? The virtual officer, the vault. I think it was
Yeah.
fantastic. I think it was great. At times we were at capacity, and there were some brethren that were actually couldn't get in, and so they had to adapt and change how we were able to learn. And I think that was great. Hats off to the committee. Like they did phenomenal. I think they did great.
Yeah, I was real proud of what happened this past weekend. I really enjoyed it myself, and I think that they did an excellent job putting it on. And I think it'll only get better as they go.
I agree, and I'm looking forward to that. I know they kind of alluded to maybe a 201 or an extension of maybe another 101 and 201 coming up in the fall, closer to before Grand Lodge. Um, so I'm definitely going to look forward to that.
Yeah,
And
if they do, I'll
yeah,
definitely show up. I will
oh,
definitely show up.
absolutely,
And I used to
absolutely,
teach the
1000%.
stuff. But I think that it's important that we continue to re-educate ourselves because there's always new stuff coming out.
Agreed.
And speaking of re-educating ourselves, Brother Zach Haston has finally gotten to the building. And I'm going to tell you, Zach,
Finally, I'm guessing you were talking about me or something.
we were talking about you. First, I'm going to say real quick before I do this, I want to tell Jason, of course, it's because I want to justify eating Big Macs. Jason's one of our inner circle members. Um, he's the editor for the Masonic Shelf podcast. If anybody's out there that likes to learn about Masonic books or any books in general, actually, and other different thoughts in Masonic esoterica, go check them out. They are all personal friends of mine, and I couldn't recommend them higher. But now back to Zachary Hastings. So we first started off talking about the OLT, but then we decided to talk a little bit about the post that you had this last week, and with the percentages and the amounts of dues and the percentages. So we've all had our discussions on all of this. So it's almost time to wrap up here, but I want to hear your perspective and what you were thinking and why you wanted to put it out for all of us to chew on, because I think it was an excellent post and I thought it brought good conversation for all, and we've had a good conversation tonight because of it too.
Well, essentially, um, it the percentage of people that buy endowments um, is kind of independent of how much the endowments cost. It has more to do with the people that are buying endowments. If you've got X number of percent of people in your lodge that will buy endowments, right? They come in, they have a great experience, they're staying with it, whatever percentage that is. It doesn't seem to matter what your endowment cost is. The most surprising one of that was the $500 endowments. I figured those would be through the roof on percentage of people that bought them because that is cheap, right? But that's not true. The same number of people buy a $500 endowment as buy a $2,000 endowment. If they're into it, they're into masonry, they're thinking long term on this, they buy an endowment. All these prices are reasonable, but even if you make it cheap, it doesn't really help. the pricing of the endowment isn't what really counts there. So that's all. I just want to put that out there. You know, there are lots of caveats to the data. We only have so many years where we've had increased endowment costs, right? Because we have a long decades of history of $500 endowments, and that just got moved up over the last couple decades. So it only really affects the newer guys on this. You know, there's issues with the data, but I thought it worth throwing it out there to show you that at least with whatever data we have, and this is, I'm not talking about 90s and before. This data is current data, which means it includes all the guys for the last couple decades, and how many of them buy endowments. So just something to note. And it's like many other things. You know, you'll get so much fight about raising things like degree fees. And all right, first of all, no one who's voting on it is being raised on. They're already got the degrees.
Right.
So
That's true. That's
doesn't,
true.
it's not going to hit your pocketbook, guys.
And the guy coming in the
But
door has no idea how much it costs.
well, and honestly, the guy coming in the door, if you tell him that the degrees are $40, what does he think about the degrees?
Yes.
Right? That's a nice meal. You know, it's not a big deal if you price it that cheap. But other data not shown, actually, I think I've shown this. Pricing it cheap doesn't bring in more guys.
Yeah.
Same thing with endowments. Pricing it cheap isn't what counts. You got other stuff that matters. The dollar signs that on these reasonable numbers aren't selling more or selling less, really.
The best way that endowments were kind of sold to me, as a new master, raised back in December, so the baby of the group, was life expectancy, and how long do you plan on being involved in masonry, right?
Right.
I was like, well, I'm a mason, so I'm a mason for life, 100%. And me, I want to live to be past my grandparents. I want to be in the 90s to the hundreds if I can get there, right?
Right.
So take the cost of what it is annually for dues and multiply that times however I think how long I'm going to think, however many years I have left, and say, well, yeah, it's kind of financially beneficiary to buy an endowment. But one of the great things that we did out at Loma Alto, in Tilden, was when the Legacy Builder came out.
Mhm.
It was, well, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me we just have to raise, you know, add it? We can add another $100 and to our endowment, and it goes to that award. It's like, yeah, sure, okay. So then the current master, well, the past master at the time, he's current master now. Well, current master at the time, past master now. You know what I mean? Started bringing it up, and we said, okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and try to raise the endowments. And everybody was more than happy to pitch in, to continue to contribute to that lodge. Um, and I was happy to do it. I wasn't even a master at the time, and even the legacy endowments that we have now, for deceased brethren, it's one of the things that I'm trying to start and keep going. So this way, not only are we purchasing endowments for the previous members of the lodge, but something to keep the lodge going, right? And I mean, y'all put the statistic out earlier of how far we travel to get to that lodge for Loma Alto, and I think we're one of the farthest distance in the state, and we love it. Like it's if you leave that lodge hungry, it is your fault, 100%. There was times where we would say it's a dinner interrupted by a meeting, and the wives come, the kids come, but they stay outside while we go into our stuff. But going back to the endowments, it was $500. And so, that was a Grand Lodge minimum, and then we kicked it up to 6. And everyone that's there is more than willing to keep adding to it. So this way we can, you know, start basically get something back, just even if it's $5 or $10, back from Grand Lodge, um, than what we pay out, and it, it's a good program when it works and when you have the brethren that legitimately want to be there and want to be Masons. It's all about, um, without sounding cliche, you get out of it what you put into it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be financially. But since we're talking endowments, this is financially.
This is. I'm a big supporter of the legacy builder. It's a great catch up mechanism. I encourage every lodge to try and push it, especially for those guys that bought in at $500 and are still around. A lot of them will. I mean, they know that they got in cheap, right? They'll add to it, and we've gotten a number of legacy builders. I kind of wish it was more, but everyone is good. The legacy builder does nothing but help the lodge. The first $500, first 550 goes straight to Grand Lodge. So that second $500, that goes to the lodge, all of it. So it's a absolute win for the lodge, for everyone that they do. I highly encourage it. While we're talking about pricing, I think kind of nationwide, the average number of years that a new person pays dues, or an average number of years that they're around, is about 23. Because we lose many of them in MPD. We lose some to deaths when you start to get towards the end of that range. So some Grand Lodges set per capita at 20, or sorry, set endowments at 23 times dues. In Texas, we return 5% on our investments. So a few lodges do 20 times dues, because then you're getting 5% back. You're essentially getting your current dues back forever to the lodge. In exchange, the lodge gives up any price increases, but I think most lodges are willing to give up dues increases for the eternity of the endowment. So 20 times is a good number. If you look just specifically at the people who fall away and go MPD, those are still doing 13 or 16 times. So, and that doesn't include the gung-ho people who buy endowments, right? You just look saying, okay, what can we get out of the guys that are going to drop out? You still ought to have 13 or 16 times dues just to get an average amount out of those guys. Because a lot of people that do drop out stick around for a while and continue paying dues. So they go through the degrees. Maybe they don't even come back for any more than a year afterwards or less. They don't actually go MPD. They still have a favorable opinion of the fraternity. They still pay for 5, 7, or more years afterwards, even if they're not participating, just because they have a favorable opinion of the fraternity. If you look just at those guys, they average 13 years, and historically closer to 16 years. So if you look at how much people are charging for endowments across the state, 13, 16, 20, 23, that's a minority. Most of them are closer to 10 or less. Now, 10's a lot better than $500 endowments, 10 times your dues. But we're still, on the whole, for most lodges, when they sell an endowment, they are losing money over what they would get otherwise.
So
all I can do is educate.
I want to jump in and ask Alex a question to kind of see what the frame of mind is. He mentioned how they sold, talk, not necessarily, actually selling, but how they was pitched the endowment program as something that could save money, something that was financially responsible. And I think that we maybe need to reframe that to where if it's financially responsible for an individual, that may be taking some money out of the lodge that we need to be supporting. And I think that's something that really is, because I was pitched the same thing, 100%. I mean, that was you can support the lodge forever. And it's going to help you not have to pay dues anymore. And I said, that sounds great. So I did it. And then 6 months later, I found out that, oh, I cost my lodge $2.50 a year. Like that hurt.
On top of not
So I
paying for the air
immediately started
conditioning.
looking into, yeah,
Well,
no, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, not only am I costing, per capita, but the benefit that I should be getting from the lodge, I'm not paying for. So when this legacy builder thing came out and I heard about it in the Grand Secretary's newsletter, that was my first clue that, oh, we can add to these endowments. So I did, and I prompted as many brothers as I could to do so. Um, Thankfully, we recently increased our dues, or sorry, we increased our dues as well, but we increased our endowments this year in June. Um, but that's one of those things that I think it's not pitched the right way. I think we're doing it backwards, and we're saying this endowment could save you money because you're going to be a Freemason for a long time. Well, it might be saving you money, but it's costing the lodge money.
I think there's
The way that I can. No, go ahead, Brother Yates.
I think there's another way of pitching it also that will really be attractive to all of us out there with big egos, because we know we got a lot of big egos in the lodges. Have the most endowed award, and have a banquet for the most endowed member, and do that once a year for whoever contributes the most endowments to their endowed membership, and have that, because I remember when when that legacy award came out, a brother at Oso, he said, "Oh, I'm gonna take advantage of that legacy deal, and I'm gonna be up on that stage." And when he did, I stood up and I said, "And everyone, to the most endowed member of Oso Naval," and everybody got a kick out of it. It was fun, and there was one brother, and I got the idea because there was another brother that was always bragging about being the most endowed member, and he had like 11 units. And then this other one came in with the legacy and took 12, and it's like, yeah, here you go. I am now the most endowed. So we ought to have a festive board and honor the most endowed member once a year, and see what we can do with it.
Yeah, one of the things with it. So, uh, going back to Brother Jacob's question for it, the best way I can describe it is like auto pay, right? Everything is auto pay. I am terrible when if something is not on auto pay, and when I can say, okay, it's going to cost me X amount of dollars, I don't have to pay dues. It's for me, it's not a, um, it's not a, man, I forgot to pay it, and now I got my NPD. Like, whoa, wait, what? If I get an email from Brother Yates, if I'm getting texts and phone calls and whatever, and he's like beating down the door, hey, where's my money? You
I'll
know,
do it.
I know, and that's the thing, is I'm trying to avoid that, right? And so for the younger generation, and for us, that for the endowments, and um for that, it just made sense, right? So me personally, I don't know what everybody else's financial situation is, but what I do is I still contribute financially to the lodge, right? Because
He is the
I'm getting.
best non-steward we've ever had. We
Yeah.
this guy feeds our lodge every stated meeting, and he pays for it and hooks it up for us. And I mean, this guy is a contributor. I'm
Yeah.
glad that he's at our lodge.
Tomorrow, so tomorrow we're having chicken enchilada casserole, and because our worshipful master is a vegetarian, we have cheese enchilada casserole for him, off to the side.
Yes,
So
I'll take
so
some of
we
both.
have, yeah, so we got two different options, but that's just the way, I was raised, right? And not to take away from our grand master, when he gives a speech, he says, "When were you first prepared to be made a Mason?" Right?
Be
You
careful
were
because
5 years old.
be careful
You
because
know,
we're online.
What
right?
his pitch is not what you think the answer is going to be, Dennis.
Well,
Well,
right.
I
I've
know
heard it. Go
I've
for it.
seen it. I've seen it. I just didn't want to get too many
But he's but
people
he
all
but
ears.
he says you were 3 years old. 3 to 5 years old, and where were you? In your grandmother's kitchen.
Yep.
That's where you were made a Mason. Way back, you know. And I stopped there and I thought about it and I was like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense. And it was always in here, right? I didn't know what to call it, didn't know what it was, didn't know, what that calling was until masonry rolled around in my life. And I started asking questions and then started going through and talking to other people and being like, "Hey, well, maybe you should go talk to these guys."
But I think we need to frame either we obviously step one, we got to raise the endowments above
Yes.
$500.
Yes.
But we got to frame it as, yeah, this is going to be a benefit to you, but you've got to continue to contribute. And I've got too many brothers at my lodge. I'm in the deep southeast little corner of southeast Texas. We've got too many brothers at my lodge that saw that $500 endowment and said, I'm good. And I think that's the problem. I obviously none of those guys are listening to or coming to a thing like this. The people that are putting in the effort to improve themselves, to improve their lodge, they're they may they're going to be the ones that continue to contribute. But the thing is, I was ready to contribute, but I didn't know that $500 endowment hurt the lodge. And I think that is where we really got to frame it out.
I did the
Um,
same thing with the first three lodges I became a member of, and I thought I
yeah,
was doing good. I thought I was helping, but
yeah.
that's exactly why I do as much as I do within the fraternity all around, and I still contribute in other ways to the lodges. So it's yeah, it's a lot like Alex. I mean, and like even today, I was sitting there looking at what we've got in front of us as far as buying aprons and Bibles and stuff like that, and I'm looking at things and I'm thinking, you know, and I just did the Form 71, right? And I'm looking at how much the secretary spent on the Form 71, and it's zero. And how much was it the year before that? Zero. And how much was it the year before that when I wasn't there? It's like $800. And of course that's where it goes. Now, that's not what I've spent on it, but the I make those donations because I know the lodge isn't in a position to do that on their own. And so, like Alex and like yourself and like everybody on this in this room, I'm sure, um, we all contribute way above and beyond. But the message needs to go out to the masses that that we need to take action. If we're gonna learn about this thing called the greater good of the whole, um, as Lee had mentioned earlier, if we're gonna teach this to our Masons and say this is what we're trying to do is develop good character traits that make us a good fit for the greater good of the whole, and we leave no brother behind or their family, then we have to take care of certain things and live and plan and manage our money in a certain way to where we can do that. And I think that's the greater conversation we need to start having with membership. Unfortunately, you know, the brothers coming in that I see, um, they understand these concepts and they're getting exactly what they were hoping out of Freemasonry, because a lot of us have started catching on that we need to do more than just, you know, fish fries, pancake breakfasts, and stated meetings in minutes. So we're starting to offer that education. We're giving that social aspect outside of lodges. We're doing the things that to where, you know, we can sharpen each other in lodge and outside of lodge, and really be a contribution to each other's families as well, so that when I die, y'all know my family and my family knows you. So there is no question if there's going to be a Masonic funeral. Y'all are already going to know my wife, and somebody's going to call and check on her. And it's not going to be a matter of if, it's going to be a matter of when and where are we going to do this. And beyond that, hopefully, if we all do this right, then our wives will know that if there's a problem, they can call us and find a solution, because that's the charity we committed to, was to our brothers and their families. So if we don't invest in ourselves and we don't find that value in our lodges, we need to create that value so that brothers are willing to contribute to the greater good of the whole. And I think that's the big takeaway of tonight. Just like with officer leadership training, it's all about figuring out a way to contribute to the lodge for the greater good of the whole. You know, as key members of management and leadership, that's the job. And even as past masters and young Masons that are just learning, that's the job. We're all supposed to be contributing to this thing. I don't know. I just gave my ending talk. I think I just gave my closing statement. Let's go around the room, because it is 10:45. It is a school night now for most of you guys, and at least my kids are still going to school. She is going to be a middle schooler tomorrow morning. I am excited and both sad at the same time. My wife is getting so old. But you notice I said that quietly. All right, so we're going to kick this off, and you know, if any of you guys want to mention anything in the chat about tonight's conversation, feel free to. I'd like to see your comments as well on if you enjoyed our conversation tonight. I hope it was a great start to your Masonic journey this week, because it always is for me. That's the main reason why I do this, and I know it's probably the same reason these guys do it as well. So we're going to start with Jacob. You're first on the screen.
Well, I just I guess summarize, you know, everything we talked about. We started off talking about OLT. It was a great program. I loved the one-on-one program. I loved being able to learn a little more. Even though I've already done it, it's definitely, you know, you come away with new stuff every time. The one thing I missed though on OLT was the socialization aspect, right? Going to it in Houston, we got to have our hospitality room each time I've been over there. We did get to have a little bit of socialization because we hosted it at our lodge and had a handful of guys there, but it was great. Then moving into the endowments, I think as much information as we can to pass out on what the endowment really means, and it's not just a get out of jail free card, which is how it was pitched to me. I think is key. Um, Not to add more to the conversation, and then maybe we could take it offline with uh, Brother Haston or Zach. My question is, have we looked at the geographic distribution of where the endowment's still 500 versus where it's higher? Is that more of a I'd be curious to know, is it more of an urban versus a rural thing on the price of that endowment? And I think that would probably be a good next thing to propose the next time we start talking about endowments. But I think, as always, it's been great. It's good information to have across the board. More light is always better. And Dennis, I appreciate everything for you to continue hosting this program. It's you know leaps and bounds above what we're finding at our small individual lodges, and without having a collective like this to go to, um, we there wouldn't be nearly as much light diffused.
Nice, thank you. I appreciate that. And believe me, I get more from you guys than y'all ever get from me. I'm sure. Brother Lee.
Well, I agree. I think the OLT piece is really important, and that's what we started off with. And my comments about, it's about multiple coats of paint. So I think doing the distance learning is always good, and it complements the in person. But I don't think anything takes away from the in person, because of many of the things that Brother Etcher said. And then the whole endowment piece, I know, is, being raised last November and going through proficiency in February. I balanced the whole conversation of endowment because they just raised the endowment in Fredericksburg from 500 to 1,500. And so I just looked at the whole cost benefit analysis of the whole deal. And I thought, why would I outlay 1,500 when over half of the lodge that paid the 500 is still paying the $150? So I thought, I'm gonna just pay the $150. And part of that was just as a challenge back to the lodge of is, hey, look, if you want me to do an endowment into this lodge, you have to earn that endowment.
Nice. Nice.
Is this the lodge that I come to learn, to suppress my, to subdue my passions and improve myself as a Mason? Do you meet that requirement? Right? It's as simple as that. If not, then maybe my endowment, those dollars go somewhere else, like Scottish Rite or York, right? And so I think that's part of that piece. And then so I appreciate, and I always enjoy seeing what Zach pulls up from Grand Lodge, because obviously it's a conversation that's being had inside the locker room at Grand Lodge about endowment. And so I appreciate when he kind of flips it over the fence to the to the to those of us outside the fence as well. But I always appreciate these conversations, and it's amazing how time flies. And it's 2 hours and 47 minutes, but you know, it's worth, steel sharpening steel. And so I appreciate it, and I'll shut it off at that. So thanks everybody. Have a great week and enjoy first days of school out there. Thanks everybody.
Thank you, Lee. All right, Brother Alex, what you got for closing thoughts?
So, wow, it's been a week, right? First OLT, and it was a virtual OLT, right? So the Vault. Going over Brother Hastings' statistics, and being just an honor to be mentioned in those statistics for distance. And Loma Alto is the mother lodge of McMullen County. for the record. But even though we're the only lodge in McMullen County, regardless, um, it's great, right? Like, so what we are doing here tonight is still doing more than like 90% of Masons altogether. We're staying up. We're talking about Masonry. We're bringing it to the people. I'm proud of the brethren that showed up. Proud of the brethren that went to the OLT, even though, from here up we were professional, right? And beyond the camera, we were comfortable. Let's just put it that way. It was good. Can't wait to go and visit the other lodges and go see what everybody else has going on. With the endowments, that's a whole can of worms that I don't feel like I am 1000% qualified to speak on, but I know why I did them. No, but looking forward to a great week, and yeah, we've got dinner tomorrow night, and at 189 with some great changes on the way. Looking really forward to it. Really looking forward to everything in the future. Yeah, let's just have a great week. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Alex. What you got, Larry?
Well, again, I really enjoyed the discussion in the process of talking about the endowments. I was kind of to see what our lodge does, and I was kind of shocked. 46% of our members, and we're a small lodge, 46% are endowed, 58% still pay dues. And on top of that, that's just the dues. Many of those pay over the dues just to cover their per diem. So I'm glad that they do it, even though we do have some that are pay the 500 and they don't come anymore. I think but still we need a lot of work. We need to do some things. And these are some conversation starters, and that's one reason why I decided to join this group. Is I needed some ideas, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you for everything all that y'all do. I'm learning. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry. I'm always glad to see when you're on, because I think it's inspiring for all Masons when you see a mentor age brother sitting here staying up late with all these young pups. Now, I'm not going to call myself a young pup. I just hide it real well. If I were to let my beard grow out, you would totally see exactly how unyoung I am. But
well, I'll tell you, Ed, I'm 70. Let's see, 73. But in my mind, I think I'm still 30. So until I start trying to do something, I realize I'm not 30 anymore.
I know,
But
I know. I'm still 17.
but I really try to. Like somebody said, growing up is still inevitable, but growing up is still an option. So I'm still growing up. But actually, I'm not growing up. But
I'm growing out. All right, brother Zach. I'm grateful that you came on and added your perspective on what you were thinking what were you thinking when you put that post out there.
But now I got to go back and watch the video and see what you guys said.
I know. We talked a lot of shit about you. No, just kidding. Not at all.
You wouldn't be the first.
No. You don't get that in this room. Not with my dear friend. But I know that you're only short into this, but what final thoughts would you have, considering that we did talk about OLT and endowments, what thoughts would you want to relay to the rest of the world?
All right. Real quick, I'm going to share my screen. Can y'all see this?
Yes.
That is a list of $500 endowment lodges.
Ooh.
It is spread evenly across the state. It is not just in the rural. You can see we got plenty of them in the big cities that are still at $500. it has more to do with the performance of the lodge than it does location.
I dare
And
you
it's
to
kind of
show us a
consistent.
picture. I dare you to show us a picture of the 2000 plus lodges.
I can do that, but it'd take me a couple minutes.
No, that's okay. Maybe next time. We'll do that next time because I already know exactly where they'll be.
Yeah, you probably do know where the 2000 plus ones, but there's a lot of 1000 or $1,500 ones. They're pretty spread around.
Yeah, people are starting to catch on.
There's a number of them in that range. There are fewer in the 2000 plus. You know, we've got some at 5,000, 7,000, a couple of them at 10,000. But the numbers are small compared to the vast majority, which are sub 2,000, which is still most of them.
How's the distribution? Is it mostly 500s or is it pretty even?
It's still mostly 500s. Yeah, most of our lodges are still at 500. However, that being said, I first started posting on this topic a little bit over 2 years ago. And in the last couple of years, we've had over 200 lodges increase their dues. Not saying that was due to me, but I have been happy to see that, increased dues also, but increased endowment costs. And while I'm on endowments, one thing I keep trying to unlink is this thought that endowments are related to per capita. So many people are like, well, we need to go from $500 to $600 so that it at least covers the per capita. And endowments don't negate you from per capita. They negate you from dues. You still have to pay per capita, or your lodge pays per capita for you. And it's the dues that matter, right? If that first $550 all goes to Grand Lodge, even if that gets reduced a little bit in January, we're still going to have the endowment's all about dues. That's what's being relieved for life. So even if per capita went to 0, which it won't, but even if it went down some, that doesn't change the amount that our endowment should be, because endowments are a reflection of dues, not per capita. And
I agree.
I keep trying to unlink that, but it's very hard to unlink. The other thing is, I think it would be nice to be able to say that the inner circle in Waco is all talking about endowments. They're not. I'm talking about endowments. But hopefully they hear me a little bit.
Well, I kind of feel the same way. There's certain things that we've been echoing around the state for quite a while. We're just trying to be that public awareness group, right? And
Right.
and we've been fighting the good fight, and hopefully every once in a while they'll hear it and or
Well, I
maybe
mean,
maybe just a few members around the state will buy more endowments, buy more units.
well, I think a few of the things I've been pounding the pavement on, I think are definitely improving statewide. I don't know if have they mentioned OLT costs going forward? Has anyone been told all that?
Don't do that now, not online, because it
Okay.
hasn't been made public yet. But I do know.
Not public yet. All right.
Yeah, and I'm
but
excited because I fought for that.
okay, well, good. So that's a good thing moving forward. There are a number of things that are being improved.
Yeah.
Subtle little things behind there, but they're not going to make endowments anything mandatory, I don't think. So we just got to do it by education on that. Of course, actually there's a resolution, I think, to make endowments 1,000 plus. We'll see what happens with that one.
Yeah,
Or make them 1,000.
Yeah, we talked about that, and that was my statement as well. Is that it's the Grand West that decides, and that means they're going to have to pay more. It has nothing to do with. And in reality, all the guys that show up to Grand Lodge, they're all endowed. 90% of them are endowed, and they're the ones that are gonna not want to raise them. Whereas the other guys that aren't endowed, they don't care yet. It's no skin off their back, not at this point. but anyways, that's I I had that same conversation that it's been talked about many times, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll
But
definitely,
yeah,
if it hits the floor, then I can assure you that I'm going to vote to increase endowments. Because I
you
don't
know,
know. Were you on here when I called myself an endowment whore?
no, I wasn't, but I'll go with it.
If
Poor meaning that
yes,
you buy a bunch of
I
them.
I am indulged. I have indulged.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
but I did it, with the same thought, like, Jake was talking about that, I never have to pay dues, and then I started thinking about the way, Alex, and man, I'm just bad about it when it comes time. I just forget and I don't pay it on time, and then it's like, well, if I get the endowment, I don't have to worry about that. I can still contribute above and beyond, and that's what I do. But yeah, I'm an endowment whore. I I'm one of those guys that soaked it
Well,
up.
I mean,
I loved it.
endowments are incredibly good for the buyer, right? Uh, there are, I can't think of any instances where it's a bad deal.
But if they
Uh,
were all
for the buyer, I guess there was one or maybe two.
if they were all $5,000, then I would have one endowment right now, and not what I have, and instead, and it
That's
would
true.
benefit one lodge very well instead of
Well,
the rest of
it
them
it
not
is what
until
it
I'm
is.
dead.
And therefore push the Legacy Builder Award, get people to add to their endowments, make them realize that their endowments aren't doing the hack, aren't hacking it for the lodge, and to help the lodge out, try and push that.
Yes.
Try and get as much as you can out of it.
Let's
As far as OLT, I kind of wish that I heard your thoughts on OLT, because I didn't get to go to the virtual, and I kind of wonder how good that was compared to in person.
and
I fear that we're losing quality in exchange for reaching more people, but I don't know. So I don't know if we can continue the conversation here. Maybe I just need to go back and listen to what you said.
we did touch on it, and I agree with Brother Lee and Brother Etcher. Did you say the same thing, that really it was a great program? It really was. However, it does not make up for the in person, where you have that collaboration, and not just collaboration, but that um, that all in kind of feeling, that for the betterment of the whole feeling that you get when you're in a room with that many Masons, learning, being intelligent men, contemplating the important thoughts of the day. You know, there there's a saying that Bradley Kohanke used to say all the time to me, and it stuck with me. And I think that if more Masons felt this way, then we wouldn't be talking. There would be no need for this show. But Freemasonry is the gentleman of the day, contemplating the problems of the day and coming up with solutions. And that's how I felt every time I ever went to OLT. Now, I still had that feeling a little bit online, but it wasn't the same, because you didn't have that real social aspect of bonding that you normally have.
When you do it in person, there's a lot of things outside of the actual meetings. But also, in addition to that bonding time, everyone that you're taking a class with, for the most part, at least the first time you go through, right?
Yes.
They're all going to be master at the same time.
Yes.
Right? All your
And
101
a lot of you are
guys are.
DDGMs at the same time. A lot of you are different. Yes. A lot of you are serving Grand Lodge at the same time. You're right. You're right. There's something to be said about
You
that.
want to build friendships with that group. They're going to be your local, at whatever local OLT it is. All those guys are going to be master when you are.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing 101 or 201, give or take a year and some exceptions, but a whole bunch of those guys, y'all are a team. And you're right. You go on, and a lot of you guys will be DDGM at the same time afterwards.
Well, and it helps when you're trying to find solutions around the state as well, because you know people you can call that have that same mindset, that you trust are going to lead you in the right direction. You know, there's nothing like that one-on-one. Well, I say around the state, and that's because I did my OLTs everywhere. So, but not everybody does that. But that's kind of why I did it, though, because I went to the first one and I realized that value, and I kept just traveling all over. I never did an OLT in my immediate region until I went to the Corpus Christi one in 2019, I think. That was my first one that I did locally per se. But yeah, I agree, 100%.
Good. We got a bunch of good resolutions in. We'll be hearing about all those soon enough.
Yep.
So that'll have plenty of discussion, I'm sure.
Yeah, we need to start talking about about the multitudes of resolutions, and the fact that we need brothers at Grand Lodge.
Oh yeah. This year we definitely need them this year.
Yeah, if you care about what's happening in Texas Freemasonry, then you need to go ahead and get your room reservations for Grand Lodge. It is always the third Friday of the month. It's the Thursday before the third Friday of the month. That's how it states in the law book. It's so funny. It's always the Thursday before the first Friday of the month. I mean, the third Friday of the month. And really, the resolutions don't start until Friday. So the third Friday of the month, just always remember that, and you'll get there on time. But if you're like me, I show up on Tuesday and just play it out till Sunday. It's always a good time. And just for all you brothers out there in the chat and listening online, we always have a dinner. The Masonic Improvement dinner on Thursday night at Diamondbacks. We always have that dinner, and what it is about, I don't know, I think the lowest attendance so far has been like 65 or 70 Masons. We have 65 to 100 Masons in their biggest ballroom, and Diamondbacks is the premier steakhouse of Waco. And we have, it's not a ballroom, it's their largest. It's called the Hall, and it'll hold like 200 people. And when you get 60 to 100 Masons in the hall with your own private bar and all that kind of stuff brought in just for you, we have our own wait staff, we have our own bartenders, we have our own everything brought in just for us, for our event. It turns into a great night, and we have a guest speaker that comes in and speaks, and then we have great discussion afterwards. It's not just hearing somebody talk, we actually talk about it afterwards. And so it's always a great night. And so I just want to encourage you to make plans for that if you're going to come to Waco this year, which you need to. I don't care if you're a worshipful master or past master, you need to be there because you have a vote. I don't know what else to say about that.
Quick preview of that. Wednesday is the trustees meeting. So you can come. That's Wednesday afternoon at 1:30.
And trustees meetings are open to the general population of Master Masons.
Not the good part, but yes, the rest of it is, and you can get a lot out of that.
Yes.
So you can come to the public portion of the trustees meeting. Then Wednesday night, there's always something informal put together. And then, of course, Thursday night's Masonic Improvement Dinner. Friday night's the
backyard. Well, that's
backyard.
It's also usually the Grandmaster's gala, isn't it? And then it goes to the backyard, and then go ahead, Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Saturday's the big day
They do
elections
Grandmasters.
installation.
Yes.
And I actually don't know. I don't know Justin's schedule.
There is a
I
gala
don't. You
that
probably
night.
can't. There is a gala that night.
There
Okay,
is a gala that night. So
good.
you need to just plan on being there through Sunday, because
Yeah.
there's a gala that night. You don't want to drive home to where we live, after a few scotches, and a good time at 2 in the morning. That's not a fun ride. I've tried it before. I will never do it again. So just get your hotel from Tuesday night until Sunday, and just call it a good time.
At least Wednesday night.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. At
yeah.
least
Otherwise,
Wednesday
you're
night.
missing stuff. And yeah, if you can't make Thursday, you're missing some good stuff. Certainly Thursday night, but try and come down Thursday night, because that way you're there for Friday
Yeah,
votes on resolutions.
and if you can't make the Masonic improvement, and we'll have a whole show on it with Dave McCam, I do every year. But if you can't make the Masonic improvement dinner, or you feel like you would rather do this other event called the pub crawl, which is awesome, they always actually pass us as we're having our dinner. They always pass us up on their way over to Crickets next door. But we have in crossing crossing Masons in the wind. But so he has a pub crawl. There's always something fun happening every night. And then some people will go after and meet up with the pub crawl after the dinner. Some people will get together and go to the hotel and just have drinks and talk Freemasonry for the rest of the night. And it's always a good time. Yeah. But we need you there to vote.
Hospitality suites are big time.
Yes,
So
there will be a hospitality suite on Thursday and Friday, just like it has been the last 3 years. There's the Austin 12 hospitality suite and the Carlton Newberry hospitality suite, and so we'll have both of those. I always tell everybody Carlton's is on Thursday and then Austin's is on Friday. I tell everybody to go to Carlton's deal first thing, because it's at like 5 o'clock. It starts at 5, and then head over to the restaurant at 6, and then go to the pub crawl after the restaurant. You can tell where the interests lie in the Masons that show up. It's a good time to blow off steam. But it's a great time of fellowship. But it's more important that you get there and learn about, if you've never been before, learn about the process of the democratic process that Freemasons hold dear, that helped establish in this country. And it really is in its finest, because you can see an amendment go to the floor, go through different changes, and then finally end up with the final thing that you're going to vote on. And if you want to ever learn about government, that's it. 101 in a nutshell, in a basic form, and it is awesome to be a part of. It really is. So I strongly recommend, if you've never been, that you need to go, especially this year. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to vote on. It's very important. So with that being said, does anybody have anything else since I rattled on after this? We'll hold on for just a second after I close this out. If y'all want to stick around for a few more minutes. I'm not going to stay up real late. I'm telling you. I've got about 10 more minutes left in me. But you guys hold on. I'm going to close this out and we can talk a little bit offline. For all you folks out there that have been in the chat, hanging in there with us and talking through all this stuff, I appreciate you. I hope that it's Gabriel, it's the third Thursday. Actually, it's the third Friday. It's the Thursday before the third Friday. So whatever the third Friday shows up on, it's the third Thursday before. It's the Thursday before that third Friday. I think this year is a good reason why it's done that way. It kind of gives a good example. On 2027, it comes up weird. And so it's a good example of why the law is set the way it is.
The the first in January is a Friday, so it should be the 14th through the 17th.
Correct. Well,
Right.
is that it? Let me look on my calendar.
Yeah,
The
it's the
fifth, the
14th.
fifth, the 15th will be the third Friday.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Yeah. So, and yeah. So it's not the third Thursday because there's only 2 Thursdays, right? But it's
Right.
so yeah the second Thursday, Gabriel. So you're right. Yes. Sorry about that. I confused it. But the way to remember it is the third Friday always, and then but it really starts on Thursday.
Well, except that they can't take any votes on Thursday. So
Correct. It's all pomp and circumstance on Thursday, but it's cool seeing the grand entrance, the grand procession, the 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 Knights Templar come out, and the commandery comes out and does the Arch of Steel, and everyone comes in with that, and you get to meet like the Rainbow Girls, the Demolay, hearing those young folks speak at Grand Lodge is really just awesome. I, in fact, we're trying to gather up the 12 girls right now to start the charter in Goliad for Rainbow Girls, because
that'd be great.
my daughter grew up um, seeing the Rainbow Girls, and she's always wanted to be one of those girls up there at Grand Lodge in her white dress. So there's something special there, and they're so intelligent. So, anyways, enough about that. We got plenty of time to talk about that. It was a great show. Thank you, folks, for coming on the show with us tonight. I appreciate you and everything that you're doing for Texas Freemasonry and beyond, because we had several several brothers that were from different places like Idaho and Washington State. I hope you enjoyed the show, and all your friends out there that are not brothers, glad you came on, because if you want to learn on how to be a Freemason, I guess this is about as good a place as any. Otherwise, everybody, I love you. Thank